Humongous, the Lord Humongous, the warrior of the wasteland, the Ayatollah of rock and roller.
You see, something's going to happen. What? What's going to happen? Something wonderful.
It's so dense. Every single image has so many things going on.
You want to see the brother? When he talking. My name is Jeff.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our show. Good champion and Jeff. And Jeff and Jeff, happy to welcome you to our program as well. Here are the categories. First off, Jeff, 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 and Jeff.
Let's try Jeff for 200.
Jeff.
They used to say if a man could fly, he'd have wings. But he did fly. He discovered he had to. Do you wish that the first Apollo mission hadn't reached the moon, or that we hadn't gone out to Mars and then to the nearest star? That's like saying you wish that you still operated with scalpels and sewed your patients up with catgut, like your great-grandfather used to.
It's like a bug was in his brain, sir.
Suck his brains out.
I'm in command. I could order this. But I'm not.
What kind of beer do you like? Heineken? Fuck that shit! Pabst Blue Ribbon!
I'd buy that for $1.
It's all Heineken! Out of the high ground!
Wouldn't it be great if every lettuce and tomato burger came with an oven for the burger and a refrigerator to keep the lettuce and tomato from getting soggy and wilted? McDonald's McDLT does. Two-sided package keeps the burger hot on the McOven side, and the McFridge side keeps the lettuce and tomato cool and crisp. You put McDLT together, so it's always fresh, never soggy, and it's totally delicious.
Jar Jar is cute. We get Jar Jar working. Because he's a funnier character than we've ever had in the movies.
Release the curtain!
Doesn't like it. I don't like you either. Watch yourself. You want it in. I have the essence of the 12 stones. You'll be dead.
Too many of them.
Not good. Strike me down and become more powerful than possibly
speaks to you. These chosen ones, you have been raised up from brutality.
These 3 words written larger than the rest, with a special pride never written before, or sings tall words proudly say, "We the people." Oh, I know how these things start. One guy tells another guy something, and he tells 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends, and they tell their friends, and so on, and so on, and so on.
Jeff.
Who's Jeff?
Yes.
Jeff for 400.
Jeff. Jeff. What is Jeff? That's right. Jeff was successful. Jeff.
What is San Francisco?
No, Jeff.
Who's Jeff?
Right again.
Jeff for Jeff.
You see, something is going to happen.
What? What's going to happen?
Something wonderful.
Oh yeah, babies. How's it all going? Supreme Lord Commander here on a Sunday evening, rather chilly Sunday evening here where I am. I know my co-host here is in a much warmer climes.
Oh yeah.
Robert J. Morris, how you doing, brother?
Howdy. Pretty good. Can't complain. Nice and warm here in Mexico.
Yeah, he's down in Mexico. Wow, you are one lucky duck. Now, we're going to be joined later by our good friend and other host on the show here, PressResetEarth. He's got some company right now. Let's hope it's the right kind of company. Yeah. So, folks, welcome to the Game of Thrones. It's our second Game of Thrones podcast. And we here on this channel, we've doing a lot of different shows. We've done some really great podcasts on The Walking Dead recently, Fear the Walking Dead. We're going to do, I want to announce this. I think, Rob, you're going to be available for this. May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. May the 4th is Star Wars Day, and I've been wanting to do a Star Wars specific podcast for quite some time. Especially,
there's lots of material there.
Oh yeah, especially with the new film, or the film that came out last year, the film that's coming out this December, which looks like it's going to be pretty epic. Yeah. A lot of New World Order themes involved in these films, and so much to talk about. And then, of course, talk about the classic Star Wars films, which I'm sure most of us know and love. And as you saw in the intro, they actually played the wrong intro, but it's okay. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But I'm a big Star Wars fan, big Star Trek fan, big science fiction fan, period. Books, movies, shows, you name it. And I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. I think you are too, Rob. And
Yeah.
we finally, we're already racing into the second season, and I liked the episode that I saw tonight. I thought it had a lot of meat to it. It covered a lot of storylines, more than I thought they would cover. And I like the way the season's moving thus far. What are your initial thoughts on this? It's called Home, by the way. Season 6, episode 2.
Well, Bolton got the shaft. Holy crow. He really got it.
How could he have not seen that coming?
He knows the guy's a twisted bastard anyway. So like Ramsay, I mean, he's a psychopath. And it's well documented. It's not like no one knows.
Your bastard son is a psycho, and you just made him your only heir. Oh, wait a second. Now you're having and I mean, if I were Lord Bolton, okay, and I actually, I see Lord Bolton as he's a lot like Tywin in my estimation of his character. He is a strong leader. He thinks several moves ahead. He's not a psycho. I mean, in the way, I mean, like he does calculate.
He's a conqueror for sure.
Yeah, he's a leader, conqueror, and he's calculative, and he does, he made certain moves. Now you can say, obviously,
not necessarily good ones, but
well, obviously he made a big play during the Red Wedding. Without his cooperation, that wouldn't have happened. So, and that gave him the North. But how he could not see, I mean, you couldn't have telegraphed it more. Your psychopathic son, and you're telling him essentially, oh, well, guess what? The fat Frey wife just had a baby, and it's a boy. Oh, well, looks like...
I'm going to get me some kibbles and bits.
Yeah, oh, man.
What a cruel prick.
I don't know how he did not see that. I don't know how he would not have taken steps to ensure that are you going to trust your psychopathic half-son? Well, he's your half-son. He's your full son, but he's a bastard. Yeah. So, I mean, I saw this coming from miles away. From the moment he gave, if you remember the episode, I don't know if it was season 3, when he brought Ramsay up onto the hillside there.
Right.
Where they were looking, Moat Cailin, and then they were looking towards the north, and he gives the whole speech, 400 miles this way, 200 miles that way. This is the north, it's huge, it's massive.
Yeah.
And then he says, he pulls out the document that he had made, which officialized Ramsay Snow as his heir and as his official son. I knew from that point onward that he was his days were numbered. I mean, right? I mean, this guy's the biggest psycho in Game of Thrones, and that's saying something, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
So that didn't surprise me at all, and I could see it coming. In fact, I was like, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And as far as I know, now I read the books, but not all of them. I read up to the 4th one. And that hasn't played out yet in the books. Maybe it has in the 5th book or the book that's coming out. So just in case you're coming in here for the first time, Rob, did you read the books at all?
No, I have not.
Okay, you haven't read the book. So we're more of a show specific. I will touch on elements of the book that perhaps that I noticed that are different. Obviously, almost everything's different. We're in uncharted territory for a lot of what's happening. And that's, of course, driven book fans nuts. But we're going to focus on the television show itself. So we finally, after a long fucking time, we finally get to see Bran again. And
yes.
He's pretty much all grown up now.
Yeah, he aged quite a lot in that tree.
Yeah. The tree gods. Yes, and there was a very interesting flashback, and I think this is a sign of things to come, and I'm really looking forward to some of the other flashbacks. I know the Tower of Joy is one of the big ones that is obviously going to, I mean, all the big fans and the book readers are really looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But I think we're going to see a lot of the history of the Stark family through these, through these sort of visions that he's undertaking with the three-eyed raven dude, who is played by Max von Sydow, another awesome actor that they brought into the cast. We also saw Euron Greyjoy for the first time, and he's going to be I think he's going to be a giant character this season. What did you think about his sort of introduction? As far as I know, I could be wrong. It's been a long time since I read it, but as far as I know that Balon, I knew he was going to die in that scene because I knew that he died, and from what I can remember, and maybe people in the chat could chime in here.
That scene actually kind of clipped out on me. I was watching a shitty stream.
Yeah, what I think happened in the books, if as memory serves, is that he was blown off the bridge as he was walking.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he tossed him
but
over.
in this they changed it, and it looks like they brought in obviously Euron Greyjoy to come in, his brother, right, his younger brother, who is like this salty sea dog pirate, who has this reputation of being a womanizer, a drunk, a gambler, a conqueror, all these things. So he's going to be. Yeah, he's going to be a very big character. Now, another thing in the books that I think you saw Victorian Greyjoy as well for the second time, which he is very big in the books. But most of what has happened with the Greyjoys has been completely omitted from the movie, from the television show, which I understand. I mean, it's different than a book. People got to understand this. It's a huge budget. There's so many different characters. And if you have too many characters, like the book, I found that my critique, I loved, like, the first 3 books were probably the best fantasy books I've ever read. And I've read a lot. So, that's saying something. I was absolutely blown away. And they're each like 1,500 pages. I mean, they're absolutely enormous. And every page is full of all kinds of things happening. So they're very, very big, detailed, meaty books, but they're very easy to read. So I would highly recommend anybody that's a fan of the show to definitely go and read the books. I mean, that's where it all came from. But yes, they have cut out most of the Greyjoy stories from the television, or from the books, in dealing with the television show. But now we're finally starting to see, and they even talked about the King's Moot, which is a ritual in which they choose their king, the Iron Islands, and it's like everybody can kind of throw their ring in the hat, or their hat in the ring, sort of thing. It's a really bizarre sort of ceremony. So they do make reference to that, so we might see that. But anyways, let's get back to what happened in this episode. There's a lot. I mean, a lot of things happen. I'm actually surprised that they covered so much. Obviously, the biggest thing is the last thing that happened, and we'll get into that. So we had the Hodor. Very interesting. Hodor going back into the visions that he's seeing, Bran's seeing, with the help of the three-eyed raven dude. He goes back and he sees Ned Stark teaching his younger brother Benjen, and kind of saying the same things, I believe, that were said when it was the sons of Ned Stark training together, sort of thing. So it was kind of like a tip of the hat towards that. And Leanne was there as well. So I think they're starting off to build what happened to Ned Stark's sister, obviously, the connections. There's a lot of theories out there that Jon Snow is actually Leanne's son, born of Aegon Targaryen.
That's right.
Yeah, so that would be really interesting, and that might explain why the Red Priestess was able to resurrect them there at the end. There's also been speculation about the blood that the Onion Knight there, Sir Davos, noticed, and people saying, "Oh, it looks like on one blood splotch is a wolf, and the other one's a dragon." And he stared at it for a long time, so he must have saw something in the blood. So I'm not really sure. But usually they're gonna, if they put something in like that, it has meaning. So that was what we dealt with. We had the Children of the Forest as well, talking about war coming. We saw Hodor, and Hodor obviously was named Willis,
right?
And he could speak back then. So something has happened to Hodor something must be something extremely traumatic that has happened to him to have made him clam up and just say Hodor for the rest of his life.
Yeah, like PTSD or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's interesting because I think we could have one of the best seasons here due to the flashbacks. It's kind of like if you think about some of the classic movies like The Godfather Part 2, the flashbacks, in that film really added, the flashbacks to old Italy or Sicily, really added to building up the whole story and the characters and just the sort of aura of that family sort of thing. So I think you're going to have interesting if they can really, have great flashbacks that contribute to the whole story. Then we went back to Castle Black. And very interesting. I think most of us knew this was going to happen just from the preview, where you knew that they were at a standoff there where you had Sir Davos with the rest of the guys that were loyal to what's his name there, Jon Snow,
right?
Holed up in a room, and they were going to get ready to fight, and they had Ghost with them. But you knew that
I was ready to cheer on that direwolf, I tell you.
yeah, exactly. It's nice to see the direwolves kind of making more of a comeback this season, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of Ghost. I think we will.
Right. And I was going to say that scene with the giant, you were bang on with your prediction there.
Yeah, because we saw in the preview that he bust open a door, so it made sense that it would be Castle Black, and that would be the way. So there was a quick. It was a non-battle. It was except for the guy that let the arrow fling at the giant there.
Yeah,
didn't end well for him.
Yeah, and that other guy, the mountain is back. That guy, wow, what a beast.
Oh yeah, too. We got to get to that.
And he just crushes a guy's head there.
yeah, amazing and interesting because we got two giants smashing people's heads.
And actually, it brings up another part of the story too. If we just flip over to that for a second, and it's the crazy the mad scientist guy. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
He's the one that put the mountain back together.
Yeah. For the guy that was formerly from the Dreadnought and lost his chain because of his sadistic experiments into the afterlife and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, he's an interesting character because it ties the story into a whole nother realm, really. Like almost, it's almost like a transhumanistic kind of a theme, almost.
I think there's a lot to chew on there, and I think that resurrection is a big deal, especially when you think about it. So we've got, of course, the White Walkers, and their king, and they're resurrecting the whites that they use, like the dead corpses and stuff, to fight their battles, and they're also taking Craster's babies, his babies that he has with his daughters, and they're turning them into these undead, powerful sort of White Walkers. I mean that's
like an artificial design almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you have that, and then you have the resurrection of the mountain there, and I think his character now is called Robert Strong, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They renamed
he got a name upgrade too.
Yeah, well, the
Mountain 2.0.
Yeah, it's. I think that's really cool element too, because now all of a sudden Cersei has this, super giant soldier, to do her biddings, and you see right away how he was sent out into King's Landing. I guess that would be Flea Bottom or whatever, right, where they're all getting wasted, and he had a guy there that was, talking about how he pulled out his Johnson, and the Queen was so impressed.
That was a funny
next thing you know, he's gotten the good old giant treatment, which is a smashed head.
Yeah.
So both giants pretty much did the same thing. The giant, now I want to remember his name there. because he's one of the like they already killed one giant, right? Or they killed
Right.
two giants, right? In the first, they killed the king of the giants,
That's right,
and they
yep.
killed one of his comrades there, the older one that had.
Yeah, in the tunnel there, he kind of sacrificed himself.
Yeah, so I think it's Magmar. Is it Magmar, the character? Or is it One Weg? I think it's One Weg, actually.
What's wrong with Phil or Stuart?
Mm-hmm. Let me see here. I'm just checking now. Now the fans of the show, look, you don't even know the name of the giant, man. 1-1. So 1-1 is the giant that I'm thinking of, that he's the one that busted down the gate in this episode, and obviously he's he's a formidable force for them, especially if they can manage to get a few more giants. Man, those guys are pretty effective. So yeah, I like to see that. I was happy to see him come back and have a big impact. Obviously, he was able to knock down the entrance, the gate there for Castle Black, and free and quickly turn the tide. Now, Alistair Thorne is once again in a shitty situation. I hope they kill him off real quick, because that's that guy. I mean, if they've learned anything, just kill him.
One after another too.
Yeah, he's pretty bad. And you even saw what's his name, Ollie there, get the rough treatment as well, because he lashed out. And Ollie's become quickly the most hated kid on Game of Thrones since I think Joffrey.
Right.
So yeah, and then so we're at the King's Landing. That's the next scene, and we're talking about how the Mountain, Robert Strong, is the Mountain resurrected, and that theme of resurrection. So you're having all these different different, say, gods resurrecting people, the ice, and then they have their method of resurrection, and you have the Red Woman, and then you have, of course, the Meister there who is now kind of taken over from Master Pycelle there, who was the old guy who pretended to be much older than he really is.
Yeah.
And
don't forget also, they exist in a world of new gods and old, so they must have had some kind of theological reform at some point.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think, and that's an interesting theme, because the resurrection and the different ways that it's done, and so with Jon Snow, the resurrection theory was around for a very long time, dealing with this, that he would come back as, a lot of people think he's coming back as Azor Ahai, right, and it's this mythical sort of, this immortal sort of being that wields this fiery sword called Lightbringer. And he's going to play, obviously, a big role in the battle against the White Walkers. So very interesting. I think everybody knew he was coming back, right? I mean, was anybody surprised that he was resurrected?
Well, they kept on hinting that he couldn't break his oath. Remember, and only death would separate him from his oath with the Black Knights.
Yeah, interesting too. The Oathbreaker, the sword. Now, Oathbreaker is the sword that Brienne of Tarth carries around, right? And but that sword was, or is it Oathkeeper? Let me just see. Oathkeeper, because
I think it's Oathkeeper.
Yeah, it would make sense. Oathbreaker, Oathkeeper is the sword that Brienne of Tarth is carrying, and it was made out of Ned Stark's sword, the Valyrian steel, and so that was Tywin who took it and made two swords out of it, because it was so massive, right? It was such a huge sword. So the Oathkeeper ended up with Brienne of Tarth, and it's interesting how it plays out, because now Brienne of Tarth is keeping her oath by protecting Sansa, and Sansa now has become the matriarch of, and possibly could be the leader of the North in the future. Of course, another big theme, I think you could say, you could say to Star Wars and many of the other things in real life, what's going on, and in a lot of the shows, Star Wars, I talked about this before, is women taking over in many ways, and I think there's a big thing in Star Wars about that.
Yeah, I've noticed it too.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that a lot more, obviously, on May the 4th. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things going on. So we see Robert the Strong again. Then we got to Marcella's funeral, in which Cersei was denied permission to go, and he had that big scene with Robert the Strong, coming down, and the Red Guard there, the Lannister soldiers, kind of facing off, and they look scared shitless. It's like 12-1, but it wouldn't have ended well for them. But she does agree not to go. And then they had a lot to do with they were talking about the symbolism, dealing with the eyes being painted on the stones, right?
That was kind of creepy.
Yeah. And that, of course, the stones that we saw were being painted by Tristan. And a lot of people talk about this. It's like, WTF? How did when you think about Tristan and what happened with Dorne? I mean, it was so condensed. It was so. They really glossed over a lot of it, didn't they? Yeah, I really think they dropped the ball when it came to Dorne. It was almost like they should have just cut it out completely, because everything didn't feel fleshed out at all. The characters seemed very superficial, almost cartoonish.
Yeah.
I would say the Sand Snakes weren't very well done. And yet there's going to be in the books. There's a sort of alliance between the Targaryens or Daenerys and Dorne. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to have any of that play out in the show, or if they're just going to fucking drop the whole Dornish thing. But really seems...
It's an interesting thing, actually, the whole Dorne plot, because if they want to focus more on that, I think this is a story about the underdogs, obviously, right? And it seems like other people, I should say other families, other houses that have been kind of oppressed or ruled by others, are now starting to come into the forefront. You know what I mean? So I do think that they really missed an opportunity to.
The Dorne is it's kind of like Spain or Portugal of it really is. I mean, it really is a big kind of reflection of the Spanish Portuguese sort of, when you compare, say, France and England and the medieval times in Europe, southern warm, they have a completely different sort of tradition, and they had an alliance with the Targaryens before and things like that. So when the kingdoms were all fighting each other, the Dornish were able to sit it out. And what's his name there, Prince Martell. He was very clever, a tactician, even though he was physically sick and stuff, right? He was very clever, and he knew the cost of war, so he was always trying to avoid getting Dorne involved in more wars. But his brother there, of course, the Red Viper of Dorne, it's quite a name, right? So, I mean, you have to earn that type of name.
That's a cool-ass name, actually.
Yeah, it's a cool-ass name. It's too bad he didn't do so much gloating. Otherwise, he'd probably still have a head that wasn't caved in.
Right.
A fucking watermelon.
That was a big upset, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. I really love the way they handled that, by the way. That I thought he was a great character too. The actor that played him did a great job. The only part I didn't like was all the gay shit that they threw in, of course, and that's what they're gonna do. But yeah, so we have the whole we don't really see any ceremony sort of thing. It's like with Marcella, we barely got to know her, and then she was killed. And then, of course, the Sand Snakes and Dorne, like there's a quote they say in Dorne, we don't kill little girls and stuff like that. Yet they kill Marcella, who is completely innocent. It's just basically your typical teen girl, right? Who had fallen in love with her Romeo sort of thing. And they poisoned her, killed her, right? And then they killed Tristan, and then they killed Prince Martell. I mean, they fucking killed all their old people, which is it seems very counterproductive. So the question is, who's going to run Dorne, and is that going to be a big thing in the future? Is it going to be the Sand Snakes? Is it going to be the what's his name there? The Prince Martell or Dory? What's his name there? The that woman there, the bastard daughter there. But anyways, let's keep going here. So we got to see Jaime confront the High Sparrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right in the Sept of Baelor, right, and it says, God's way to accept her mercy, right, or it's God's way to accept her mercy, not to fear death. And Jaime says, like he talks about judgment, that we should, where is my judgment? Don't I deserve it? I killed the king. I killed, my cousin. I killed this person. He's killed so many people, right? And then what the High Sparrow says, all of a sudden you see all his thugs come out, right? The religious thugs there of the High Sparrow. And he said this quote, I'm going to try to remember. I think he says, who are we? We are penniless, right? And poor, and yet together we can overthrow an empire.
Yeah.
So, very interesting. Almost and he's dressed
that's kind of like the secret society kind of philosophy, if you would, playing the long game.
Yeah, but also it's a reminder, like, I think in a way, like the Sparrow represents, the popular sort of opinion,
Right.
And that he is, he is reminding the aristocracy that at the end of the day, if the people don't like you, if the people are angry enough, they will throw you out. Doesn't matter who you are. If you piss off enough people, if shit gets shitty enough, then you'll be taken down, sort of thing. Even though we're poor, even though we're penniless, we are numbers, right? Very, very interesting dialogue between them. And I think
it's like an us versus them kind of thing. That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it touches on religion a lot, right? There's a lot of things being said about religion in Game of Thrones. I think they could make for an interesting podcast in itself, the sort of theology, and we've touched on it, the resurrections and stuff like that, the afterlife, the way that the different religions view life and the afterlife and things like that. Very interesting. But yeah, I mean, he is obviously a force to be reckoned with because he has no fear and he has no possessions, and he has, he walks around in a fucking dirty ass robe, and he looks like he hasn't taken a bath in like months, and yet he has the power because the people respect him. And they will do what he wants.
And they probably relate to him a whole lot more too.
Yeah, of course, because they think about it. If you contrast what you see of the aristocracy of King's Landing, they're always being carted around in these, these gold, what do you call them? What are those things called?
I'm trying to find a name for it. I know what you're saying.
Right.
Or like
yeah, I mean, they never really see. They never, the only one that went into Flea Bottom is the one that's obviously the sister there, the queen, who's the queen right now, Marjorie Tyrell, who is imprisoned by the Sparrow. And the interesting thing about her is they want her to come forth and they want her to admit her guilt. I'm trying to remember if she's ever done anything really sinister. I don't think she has. She's actually when you first kind of meet her, she's going to see the poor, and she cares about people that are underprivileged and stuff like that. So I think there will be a showdown, because I think you saw in the preview, you saw the Tyrell sort of sigil the flowers and stuff,
Right.
and a showdown on the steps of Baelor. So at some point, you're going to see the Tyrells try to break her free of her imprisonment, and that'll probably lead to something. So yeah, really interesting scenes there. I like the way that they're condensing things. It seems like they've, like I could say about other shows, and we've covered, of course, The Walking Dead, and I found like in the last season of The Walking Dead, there was just so much filler. There were so many things that you just like, why did they do that? Why did they have to throw this in? It just seemed like a lot of scenes and almost full episodes were just there to kind of
very contrived. Like
Yeah.
some plots are just stupid.
Whereas with this show, obviously, they have an abundance of material, so they actually have to condense everything, and that must be obviously that's a big task to figure out what you're going to
and how to fit it into 43 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. I could have fit it into 43 minutes. I wish the episodes were longer. A good hour would be nice, but it seemed tonight like they just put a lot of stuff in there. So, you had Cersei and Tommen. Then the next scene, and another reference, because Cersei said, "What was her? Did they dress her up in a gold or red dress?" And Tommen said gold. And she went, "Yeah, that's what I figured." Of course, the prophecy that she got from the witch said, you'll have 3 children, gold will be their crowns and gold will be their shrouds, right? And that was like, and she's seen it happen. So she's only got one son left, who happens to be the king, and you know how long kings last. And
yeah, right.
I guess if I was a king, I'd be like Robert Baratheon. I'd just be banging whores all day, getting wasted.
That's right.
Maybe you have a run of 10, 15 years. Then you're like, yeah, all right. I got poisoned. I got fucking speared by the boar. So, but yes, in many ways, Game of Thrones, I'm sure I would have to get more into George R.R. Martin, but in so many ways, he is doing a direct reflection of many of major things that happened during the medieval times in Europe and stuff like that. So a lot of the storylines are very similar, the betrayal and stuff like that.
There's a lot of allegory to what's going on now too, I believe.
Yeah, like the Red Wedding and the War of the Roses and all that. Like it's very interesting, and that's one of the reasons why this show is endlessly fascinating. The books, obviously, the show. Because it's fantasy, but yet it has a lot, obviously, of historical sort of elements to it. It's like, and what I like about it too, much like Lord of the Rings and other great fantasy out there, is that everything is built up. Like, and even with the show, you got to say, like, I heard somebody talking about how they brought in a linguistic specialist to develop the language of the Dothraki. And I thought they did a great job, because when you hear the Dothraki speaking, that's how I'd expect these guys with their ponytails and their beards and their fucking muscles on their horses, booting around the desert. That's how I'd expect them to speak. So
like
really
all Conan and shit.
Yeah, heavy on the Conan, right? Right. Yeah, it's great. So we didn't see Daenerys in this, but we did get back to Meereen, and very great scene there, I thought, with Tyrion. Now, Tyrion's always getting wasted. I love how whenever they switch, you see Tyrion, he's pouring himself a drink, and everybody's looking at him. Oh, he's getting wasted again.
That's what I do. I drink, and I know things.
Exactly.
Great line.
Drake said, "I know things." Oh yeah, that's not so bad if you could pull it off.
Right.
So obviously the fleet has been completely destroyed, and they find out the other 2 cities that Daenerys had conquered, including Astapor, have fallen back into the slavers' hands. So much for being the liberator of all the slaves. Now they're probably getting beaten and crucified and whatever. But then you see the dragons. Finally, the dragons, the 2 dragons that were kept down in the basement, and Tyrion's like, we got to use them, and you got to like that. Like Tyrion that's his gift. Like he knows when to use things. He knows when to play his cards, and that's a card that that they hadn't played. I mean, you got these extremely powerful beings that could terrorize and potentially turn the tide against the Sons of Harpy, right? And they're being chained up in the basement. So he takes the chains off, scared shitless all the while, but showed a lot of courage to be able to do that. And he even says in the end there, when he's going up the stairs, he says, next time I come up with an idea like that, punch me in the face.
That was awesome.
That's great.
That in that scene, what did the dragons actually do? Because my stream clipped out right at that moment. And then I heard him say that. Yeah,
the dragons, it seemed like, okay, so he went down, and at first they were apprehensive and they kind of growled at him and were going to burn him, but then they stopped once he started talking, and then he slowly approached and kind of eventually put his hand on one of them. Now the names of the dragons escape me at this moment in time, but he had said before that, like they were talking about the dragons and that, the Targaryens thought that they were smarter than people and that they're very intelligent. And then what he said about them was that they're fiercely loyal to those that they have like affection for. And they are ruthless and brutal towards those who hurt them. So he recognizes that this is a card that he could play, and he went down and he was able to take the chains off their necks. And then they looked like they went back and ate whatever was left. Like they finally decided to eat. They were pretty hungry. So I guess we're going to see the dragons be used, and it'll be interesting to see if Tyrion is able to develop a relationship with these dragons, or if it seems like he already has, in a sense, like maybe he gained their trust.
He's already broke the ice.
Yeah, he's broke the ice. Oh yeah. So but another thing to make note of is that George R.R. Martin is not big on all the dragons and magic and all that stuff, so he doesn't want that to overpower the story. Although you're gonna probably see more of it or it's going to seem like you're seeing more in the actual show itself. But I imagine also that the CGI is expensive for that, so it'll be interesting to see how the dragons, like, will they be involved in trying to rescue Daenerys, or will they be used against the Sons of Harpy? A lot of different things. Wait, maybe Tyrion will go for a ride.
Yeah, right.
Probably not, though. You have to be Targaryen to ride one of those things. Okay, so then we get back to Arya, right?
Right.
And she finally seems like she's passing the test.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
I was wondering how long they were going to just kick the shit out of her on the street, like just go back to her every week, kick the shit out of her again, and just kind of hold off on the story.
The crap out of her every day. Here's a blind girl. Let's beat her up. Yeah, it's interesting too. Like in the last time that they were kicking the shit out of her, not this episode, but the episode before, you could overhear the people in the background talking about what happened to the guy that she killed at the whorehouse. The whorehouse that specializes in providing pedophilia and young girls, virgins. And they were saying, well, I'm never going back in there again. Meanwhile, she's getting the shit kicked out of her, right? Oh, well, he had it coming, right? But yeah, she gets the shit kicked out of her again. But then, of course, the guy Many Faces there arrives, and he offers her a place to sleep and food and clothing and all this, and even her sight back, but she keeps saying the same thing over and over again, which is a girl has no name, or what's your name? Yeah. A girl is not a beggar anymore. A girl has no name. So she seems like she's finally passed a test that they wanted her to pass. And so maybe now she's going to start going through more training or whatever.
I wonder if we're gonna meet her. Remember her instructor, her
Serial.
Yeah, I wonder if we're gonna see him again. Is he dead?
Yeah, he's dead.
Oh, he is for sure though.
Yeah. They killed him. You didn't see it, but you heard it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you don't see it, you just don't know.
It was what's his name there, the guy that she killed, the Kingsguard. What's his name? Do you remember his name?
Oh wow,
he's a hideous character. Yeah,
that's going way back.
Yeah, he the one that she killed and stabbed in the eyes, and at the pedophile there.
Right.
Yeah, he was the one that killed Syrio, so she got her revenge. You didn't see it, but you heard it. You heard her as she was running, and that was when they were slaughtering all the Stark.
Yeah.
Family and all the Stark servants and guards and everything, and it was just a butcher, right? And you heard him scream at one point, "Oh!" So and he broke his wood stick or his wood sword, so like he had nothing left.
Oh wow!
If he had a real sword, he'd still be kicking ass.
Right.
Like the first sword of Bravos, and the Bravosian. The fighters in Bravos, that's part of the lore of Bravos, like the street fights, like these guys will challenge each other, kind of like duelists in the in the West, the Wild West sort of thing of American folklore, and reality, history. They would actually fight, and for to have the claim of being the toughest guy, and so he was like the most successful sword fighter to come out of Bravos for his era, sort of thing. So he was like world class swordsman. So it's unfortunate that he died. He became a quick favorite on the show, I remember. Arya obviously is going to be one of the very strong characters moving forward. She's developing her Daredevil-like abilities.
Right.
You've been watching Daredevil, I think, right?
Yeah, actually, I have. I'm into season 2 now.
Oh, fuck! You're right up where I am. I think I'm episode 5 or something. That's a great show. Maybe we'll do a podcast one day on that. But yeah, in Daredevil, he's blind. He doesn't have any super abilities, or he's not supposed to, but of course it's comic books, right? So he could do all these amazing things, but he develops his other senses to compensate for his blindness so that he becomes a super crime fighter, kick-ass guy that dresses up in a red devil suit. Runs around Hell's Kitchen kicking ass. If you haven't seen the show, Daredevil, that is it's a great show. I mean, the acting is fantastic. They got a great cast. And I was a big fan of the comic when I was a kid, so it was one of my favorite. So they really captured it. We're at the point where like in season 2, you've got the Punisher coming in, and then you've got Elektra. So I'm right in the point where they're going back through the flashbacks about Elektra and all this. So
yeah, I'm waiting for all that.
Yeah, so and I thought they did a great job with the Punisher, by the way. They brought in the guy from Game of Thrones there that we talked about.
Or you mean Shane from Walking Dead?
Yeah. Sorry, Game of Thrones. Getting the shows mixed up. Yeah,
show Jeff.
He does an amazing job as the Punisher. He really he's great. Okay, so we got to get back to Game of Thrones, obviously. The dragons have been freed, so we don't know where that's going. We've gotten to Arya back in Bravos, and then we went to the Boltons. So the Boltons have made an alliance with the anti-Starks. So you've got the Karstarks, and then you've got the Umbers, and I think there was one other family, and those families are loyal to the Boltons. And so you could see before perhaps Lord Bolton is murdered by his own son, you could see that there's already been, Ramsay has already been working behind the scenes to secure their sort of support, in that he's going to obviously kill off his father to prevent an heir from being born was born, but an heir from having a chance of taking away his taking away the North from him, because he is the de facto ruler now. Okay, so you've got the Umbers, you got the Karstarks. The Karstarks, of course, the leader of the Karstarks was murdered. He was executed, beheaded. In I think that was season 2 or season 3, if I can remember. By, of course, the Stark, the King of the North, right? And that was because of what he did, because he murdered some of the Lannisters, right? When they went in and they murdered a couple of the Lannister relatives that they had captured to avenge. Lord Karstark did, to avenge the death of his sons. I think he lost 2 sons, if I'm not mistaken. So, anyways, the Karstarks are there. The Umbers are there. What else did we have? So Lady Walda, we got the news that Lady Walda had given birth to a boy. Of course, we know what that means for Ramsay Snow. So he didn't hesitate. He murders his father right away in cold blood. And then he, you see, it seems like, I guess the house master there, Meister, hadn't been secured, because he seemed like he hesitated. He's like, send some ravens out, tell them that Lord Bolton was poisoned to death by his enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of hesitant, right? And then you had the Karstark guy step in, say, he's your lord now, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then of course, poor Lady Walda, man.
Yeah,
that's you get. I mean, if you're ever around Ramsay Snow and he asks you to come check out his dog pen,
don't go.
Yeah, it's a good time to get out of there. I gotta go. I'm cooking dinner right now.
Oh, look at the time.
Yeah, look at the time. So we did, we got to see that obviously he is eliminated any rival heir from having a chance. So he kills off Lady Walda and his little brother, which he holds in his arms just before bringing it into, of course, the dog pit.
The dogs are fed.
The dogs are fed. Dogs. Hey, you know what? If you're a dog, you might, I don't know, you'd probably get well fed if you had Ramsay Snow as a master. Like last time it was the kennel master's daughter there, the hot girl there, the hot psycho bitch.
Oh yeah.
He was banging, right? And he's like,
feed her to the dogs.
Should we a burial, or do you want a cremation? He's like, oh, that's great meat. Feed it to the hounds.
That's right.
That's crazy, man. So, and then finally, we get to the Greyjoys. So we see the daughter there. What's her name? Do you remember her name? The daughter of Balon?
Oh, geez. I can't remember her name.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to look it up. The Greyjoys. The Greyjoys. So I think it starts with an N. I can't remember now. I just want to make sure. I don't want to sound like a moron, but it's been a while since we've seen characters. Yara Greyjoy. So Yara Greyjoy too she's very manly. Like she's a tough bitch for sure. And she's like, when you see her when she's first introduced, of course her brother starts feeling her off, but he didn't know who she was, sort of thing. But then you see that she has the respect of the Greyjoys, or of the Ironborn, as they call them, right? And they're like the toughest motherfuckers around, and
they're almost reminiscent of like a Viking type of civilization, almost like the women are like Valkyries. You know what I mean? They have that similar kind of structure.
Exactly. So we're finally going to see more of the Greyjoys, and that's a big part of, especially the 4th book, is the Greyjoys, like Victarion and Euron and all that. So we're finally seeing these characters. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Victarion, but we're going to see a lot of Euron Greyjoy for sure. He was introduced at the end, and he was the brother of Balon that you saw up on the bridge, the walk bridge there. And in the books, I'm pretty damn sure Balon just gets tossed off. It's like a rogue wave or something, that gust of wind, I think like a crazy gust of wind comes up and just throws him off. But in this, it's his brother Euron that kills him, and they have a confrontation beforehand. Then they show Balon being wrapped up in seaweed. What is dead may never die, right? So yeah, you finally get back. Of course, Theon is making his way back. Did we see Theon there? Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah. When he left, what's her face there, Sansa.
Yeah, he was going back, but did he make it back? Did we see?
I don't think we saw him make it back. No, we just saw him.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's interesting too, because that's going to play into who's going to be. There is no heir, so they have their king's moot, and they have this sort of ritual in which they choose a king. And there's never been a woman that's been chosen, but Yara in the books really makes a play for it. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works out in the show. And then finally, we get to the last scene, the big scene that I guess most people will be talking about, which is the resurrection of Jon Snow. And it's funny how it's the Onion Knight, right, Davos, who goes to the Red Woman because, like, he's always been so disgusted by everything that she's done, all the black magic, including... Right. He was there, of course. He commandeered the rowboat to go and assassinate Stannis's brother, right? And then she gave birth to the shadowy sort of.
That was a funny line when he said that. He goes, "I've seen you give birth to a shadow demon. Like, you sure there's nothing you can do?"
Exactly. Come on, you got to be able to do something, right? So she goes through a ceremony and she bathes the body and cleans his wounds and cleans his hair and all that, and then says a whole bunch of which would be some tongue from the old world. So of course, we know she's much, much older than she looks. Some people think she's hundreds and hundreds of years old, so we don't really know how old she is, but we know that she has I'm talking about the Red Woman, of course. We know that she has lost a lot of her faith. And you could see it because when the Onion Knight goes to her and tries to, say, there's got to be something you could do. She's like, she basically says, I saw him in the flames and I saw this and I've lost all my faith. The Red God lied to me. I don't know if she said it quite like that, but.
Yeah, she seemed quite disappointed.
Yeah, but yet she does go through. I thought it was funny though, and he had a funny quote there. The Onion Knight, he's like, I've seen all these gods, the 7 gods, the drowned gods, the tree gods. It's like there's so many different gods, right? He says, I just want to see that miracles still exist, and I've seen you perform miracles. So she does go through it, and they didn't stick around, of course, to see. I mean, they thought it didn't work. But yes, he does come back in the end. And you see a ghost react just before he wakes up. Dogs, of course, have a way.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's the episode pretty much that we saw tonight. A lot of very interesting things developing in the show. I think we're in for a pretty exciting season. I don't know where it goes like now because the books obviously have now it's surpassed or not surpassed, but gone ahead, at least chronologically ahead of the books in many ways. So I think a lot of people don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting because I guess if you're a book reader, he is writing the last book right now, and he's not exactly the fastest writer, but he also tends to write massive books. If you ever picked up any of these Song of Fire and Ice books, they're huge. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I think the book's supposed to come out perhaps by the time the next season or the last season comes out. So the conclusion, hopefully it won't come out after. I'm hoping that obviously the fans of the books, the real story comes from all the books. The books is there wouldn't be a show without the books, and they're great books. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So yeah, I mean, here we are. We're season 6, and what else? Did you have any other big things that you took out of this episode, or any things that you wanted to touch on? Any of the themes? Anything at all?
Yeah, well, the whole thing with Ramsay, I think that's going to be a huge deal. I think he's really going to stir the pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he was talking about, he was talking about invading the North and this and that. I'm thinking to myself,
he's talking about taking Castle Black.
Yeah, exactly. Now he doesn't know that they're friends with the wildlings there.
Yeah, and now you've got Tormund Giantsbane. You've got a fucking veritable giant.
Yeah, right.
So you've got a bolstered amount of numbers. You've got obviously all the people involved in killing. Hopefully, all the what are they called? The Night's Watch. There, the Black Watch. The Black Watch. Are they called the Black Watch? Black Night's Watch. The ones that were involved in killing Jon Snow should all be executed right away. I wouldn't even hesitate.
Exactly.
Feed them to the dogs. Feed them to Ghost or whatever. So if Ramsay tries to attack Castle Black, he's going to be in for a big surprise, because they're going to be a lot stronger than they anticipate. They're going to think that there's only like 50 or 100 people there and all this. But they'll probably have several hundred now with the wild folk joining them, and they have a giant. So, so I don't think it's going to go well for Ramsay Snow, and that would depend on his intelligence, if he's able to. That's
just it. That's what I'm worried about, because what is he going to do? You know what I mean? And of course, if he moves troops, I mean, it's going to create a power vacuum, right? So someone else is going to move in. Obviously, that's what usually happens on this show.
Yeah, that's why it's called Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's just never stops. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So I think they built up Ramsay Snow, and the character, the guy, obviously the actor that plays him is doing a great job. I have to give him credit. In the books, he is not like that. If I remember correctly, he is like a wretched looking human being. He is he's not like handsome or anything like that. They've changed him for the show, obviously, to make him, and the guy's doing a great job. I mean, one day you have a serious kind of discussion about who's the biggest psychopath in Game of Thrones, because you've got some real heavyweight contenders.
Yeah, we've had some real winners there. I know.
Yeah, King Joffrey, right? The Mountain, of course, before he became Robert the Strong. But you look at leaders like Bolton, Lord Bolton, Lord Tywin. As well, they're not psychos. They're not here, or they're not in the story. We'll keep it to, we'll stay away from the books. We'll just stay to the show. Arguably, you could say they're the bad guys, but you know how the show works. I mean,
almost everyone's a bad guy then.
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, I think Ned Stark is one of those characters that put honor above all else, right? So he was special. And guess what that got him? It made him a foot shorter. So he lost his head. There aren't too many. Most characters are gray, and for good reason. And you learn that. I think that's really cool what they've done when you see characters like Jaime Lannister, right? And when you first are introduced to them, you're like, this guy's the biggest fucking asswipe, banging his sister. He's cocky. He's such an asshole.
Then you come to like him after a while.
Yeah, and then after a while, you start to get to know. You understand maybe a bit of his mentality and why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
And it's one of those themes in Thrones is that your environment, your upbringing, your situation has a lot to do with who you are, obviously.
And not to mention the fact that Jaime Lannister also had a life-changing experience. I mean, he really was a jerk.
Yeah, and he got humbled big time.
Big time.
when he lost his hand, which was, I thought they did a great job with that too.
That was a horrible scene. Holy shit.
Yeah, fucking hell. They changed that character too. The guy that did it to him, they created a new character, that guy Locke that we saw, and then they sent him in the show up to up north, right past the wall,
right.
And his job was to go in and kill Jon Snow, I believe, right? But that character was another character in the story, the one that was loyal to the Boltons. But nonetheless, I thought they did a great job with that. And yeah, he really, had one of the biggest sort of arcs of all the characters. Like you saw him at his best, when he was, King's Guard and,
right.
In King's Landing, and he's king shit essentially, right? And he's laughing at Ned Stark and all this, and has no respect for Littlefinger and all this. But then when you see him captured, and he was beaten in battle, he was captured, which was something that never happened before. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, too, I understand. I mean, it was one of the disappointing things in the first season is you didn't see the battles, and you would have liked to. I know that's the expensive thing to do. Mm-hmm. So they had smaller battles like they had with the hill tribes and stuff like that, but they didn't have the big battles, like the battles between the Starks and the North and the Lannisters, sort of thing, the King of the North, because I would have liked to have seen Robb Stark with Ghost,
right.
Ghost. Sorry, his direwolf wasn't called Ghost. Now I can't remember what his direwolf was called. Of course, they killed his direwolf at the Red Wedding, right, when he was in the pen. But in battle, Robb Stark was fierce, and he was like, what they're saying too with the direwolves is that all the Starks, because there were 6 direwolves, I believe, and 6 Stark children, right? Including, of course, Jon Snow. And they all had some sort of connection. Like they all had a like you see Bran is able to see through his direwolf, but in the books, like they all do. Like they all have that power. It's just that Bran is actually developing his power. So there is a real strong connection between the Starks and their direwolves. And I would have liked to have seen, some of the battle scenes between the Lannisters and the Starks in the first season. That would have been cool if they would have shown like Robb Stark in battle with his direwolf, because they were like in unison. They were like kicking ass and like terrifying the Lannisters, and that's where the lore of Robb Stark, the King of the North, was coming from. Like he was undefeatable in battle, so he was kind of like an Alexander the Great,
right?
He won all his battles up until, of course, the Red Wedding, where he was
horribly murdered.
The craziest scene ever. I don't know though. Like Game of Thrones, you gotta say, is gotta be the show with the most jaw-dropping scenes. Like. And if you read the books, they're coming. But even then, you're still like, "Wow, this is crazy." But in every season, there's at least a few. I thought in the last season there was even more. Like when Stannis killed his daughter, I saw that comment too. Like when I was watching the episode. Of course, it hadn't played out in the books, so nobody really knew except the show's producers and the people involved in the production and all that, the actors. But yeah, I mean, like that was wow. That was like that particular episode was one of the most shocking episodes I've ever seen, and I think that's a theme that you're seeing a lot. And I want to get into that, obviously, with Star Wars and stuff. I think we'll get to talk a lot about this on. I think it's Wednesday when we're doing the May the 4th. The youth killing off the elderly sort of thing, where you have, of course, in Star Wars, the new one, you have, what's his name there? Ben. Ben, of course, who is Kylo Ren, who's turned to the dark side, and he kills his father off. These are symbolic themes that they're pushing into a lot of what we see these days, and the death of the family and the killing of the elderly and stuff like that. So very interesting themes. I've seen a lot dealing with Star Wars. I've watched the Force Awakens twice. I'm going to try to watch it one more time before we do the podcast, just so I can get everything out of it. But I found a lot of really heavy themes in that film. And you got to wonder who's producing it. You know, you've got Jewish Hollywood heavily behind it. So they are coding Star Wars with all kinds of New World Order themes. Big themes.
I saw. Oh yeah. There's tons of it in there.
And the, you know, like I talked about it, the symbolism of the lightsabers, and of course you have, in the end, you have the split, the men and the women, of course, and the female character Rey defeats Kylo Ren, and there's like a chasm that opens up, you know, between them, sort of thing. Very symbolic. Like there's a lot going on there, but we'll save that for that show.
Right on.
Yeah, so anyways, getting back to Game of Thrones, what do you see happening now? Like, where do you anticipate some of the storyline unfolding, or do you have any sort of...
It's a really, really hard one to do, because as soon as you think of, if you try to anticipate one thing, you don't know who else is moving in to fill up that space. You know what I mean? Like, it's it's a lot to keep track of. But what I do see happening is definitely the underdogs coming together. So I'm talking about Daenerys. I think is going to be somehow supporting Jon Snow at some point. It's all building up to this meeting. Like,
yeah, I think so. Obviously, with Jon Snow being resurrected.
Yeah,
and you know, he's not going to come back as Jon Snow. He's likely to come back as something different.
Yeah, and still we got this problem with the White Walkers. I mean, winter's still coming, apparently.
Of course. Don't tell me that.
Right.
Now that we just got over winter here, it's still cold.
How you doing? How you doing there in Canada?
Oh man, it was like, today wasn't so bad, although it was raining. You know, it's 7 degrees right now, Celsius. But yeah, over the weekend it went down to 0. In the evening, sort of thing. So yeah, it's been slow, but it's supposed to warm up this week. So I think we're finally gonna get you know, some nice springtime weather, which sucks. I hate when it comes so late like this, because we have such long winters. So, you know, you want to get, like here in Montreal, we really want to.
I know. I grew up in Ontario. Trust me. I know.
Oh yeah. Really, yeah. So. But yeah, anyways, you know, it's nice to finally get into the spring, and hopefully it'll be a great summer. And we're obviously going to be doing a lot of podcasts. And as Game of Thrones keeps going on, I mean, there's just so much out there that's going on. And I think, like, I'd like to, like in a future podcast dealing with Game of Thrones, really get into some of these themes. I think the resurrection theme is huge. So I'd like to do some research and get more into that, and you know, really see a lot of what they're touching on. So I mean, there's just so many deep themes, and that's why we do these shows. People that come in, you know, I know there's probably a lot of hardcore Game of Thrones fans that might come in, maybe get a bit turned off because we're not heavy hardcore book guys, and you know, and all that, but you know, we understand a lot about what's going on in the world, so we try to find what we find in these shows and movies, and try to talk about the themes that are being presented. And there's a reason why Game of Thrones is such a huge show, you know, and they want you to be watching it, so they're obviously going to put a lot of things into it that are going to reflect a lot of what's going on in the world, even though it's set in a different... I think, you know, when we see The Walking Dead, for instance, and I don't... Did you get a chance to watch the Fear of the Walking Dead, the Ouroboros episode?
That was on tonight, right?
It was actually... No, I mean, there's another episode tonight, so...
Yeah, okay, I did see that one, yeah.
Yeah, the one last week where they went... The Ouroboros, the worm Ouroboros. It's
yeah, that's right.
or the worm that eats its tail sort of thing. So heavy sort of symbolism there. I didn't, the last episode that I saw of Fear the Walking Dead was, to me, wasn't nearly as good as the one that we did the podcast on. So it was kind of good that we moved on. But I think we can go back and revisit that. Maybe, probably, certainly in like a finale. I mean, if there's 6 episodes this season or 8, I don't know how many episodes there are this season, but
no clue.
Go over and do the whole show in one podcast rather than do it every week, because I don't think it has enough. Although we did cover a lot when we did that particular episode. So, but yeah, this resurrection theme that has been played out throughout Game of Thrones, it's something that keeps reoccurring over and over again. So it's a big theme, and we're seeing it more now than ever before. So it's something that I think there's a lot to do with it. Also, the red god, right? The whole, of course, you got the ice. You've got the White Walkers and their sort of religion, if you will. So you've got that's why they say Song of Fire and Ice, right? You have
their religion is just kill everything.
No, they get Craster's babies, his ancestors' babies, and they turn those into their soldiers. But yeah, I mean, we're going to see, actually, from the books, you don't really see much about the White Walkers. You just hear the tales, right? You hear the stories. You don't really see them, but the show has actually shown a lot. Like that episode Hard Home, which was last season, if you remember. Yep. Do you remember that episode?
I do. Actually, that was pretty intense, actually.
Yeah, that was probably the most popular episode last year. Yeah. It had the big battle scene where you had the White Walkers. You saw the king, and then you saw, there was the big battle sort of thing that happened there. That was not in the books at all. So, I mean, they mentioned Hard Home, I think, in the books, but it was never even in a scene. Wow. So they actually kind of made that for the show. I guess because you want to remind people watching the show what the big danger is, or one of the big dangers out there. So while the Game of Thrones is happening, you still have this massive threat from the north that is, potentially going to change everything.
And it's funny because the timing couldn't be any more perfect. I mean, got everything falling apart, literally.
Yeah.
And here they're telling us about winter's coming. Like, it's almost like putting people into prep mode. It's strange.
I kind of feel bad for Tommen because he's such a nice guy. He's just not cut out to be a king of King's Landing. I mean, no. If I was the king of King's Landing.
Well, he made a good first step by asking Mom.
Yeah, I know. He's still he did stand up to his mother, but then he went and sobbed and apologized and all that. But yeah, I mean, that his time is limited. That he's not going to last long.
Well, I think he knows that now.
Yeah,
I think he's starting to get. I better get tough quick.
Yeah, that's why. But you can't make yourself tough. I mean, you're either tough or you're not, sort of thing, right? Or unless you go through the ordeals that will toughen you, but it's unlikely that you're going to go through that when you're holed up inside the Red Keep at King's Castle or King's Landing. So,
right.
So he seems like, he's the polar opposite of his older brother, Joffrey, who was a perfect psycho, right. And yet Joffrey, I mean, you could say he was a bad king for sure, in the sense that he was a sadistic, psychopathic, fucking bloodlusting, complete asshole.
Psycho says it all.
Yeah, psycho. But in some ways that can be effective, and it can be effective for a period because it keeps people in line, keeps people in fear and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So that's when I think it was Meister Pycelle says, "Oh, Joffrey was a good king, strong, and stuff like that." It's like, that guy's a fucking psycho, man. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
He made good business decisions.
Yeah, I wonder though. Like, I see it that he's going to be taken out at some point. Now, the Varys is no longer there. We haven't seen Littlefinger in a long time. So I don't think we've seen him yet this season.
Well, I don't. I think they're setting something big up there because he's going to be a big player in this.
Yeah, I wonder if he is, if he's gone back to Harrenhal.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's the territory that was given to him. Was it by Tywin, Lord Tywin, or Joffrey? I don't know at the time. They gave him a Harrenhal. Now Harrenhal is like the biggest castle ever made. But that was burned down by the Targaryens, dragons, right? So It's like it is totally cursed. It's been cursed ever since. Like everybody who has inherited Harrenhal has had nothing but tragedy happen to them. Like, immediately things go wrong, family members die, they die, shit happens.
Yeah, they've really taken a stomping.
Yeah, yet Littlefinger was very happy to receive that. I guess he knows strategically the territory. But they say with Harrenhal, it's so big that it's impossible to hold the entire castle because it's like they talk about the hearth, like the big hall that they have in there, and it's like 50 times the size of the one at Winterfell. Like the one that you see where the king first arrives and they have the big meal and all that. Like there was like something like hundreds of fire pits and shit. Like it's just this massive thing. Yeah, it's very interesting. So I'd be interested to see when he's gonna pop up again. That he is the guy, one of the guys, obviously Varys being the other, behind the scenes that is making things happen all the time.
Well, this is just it, right? Because they're going to probably do some big maneuver somewhere. It could be Ramsay. It could be anybody. Let's just, XYZ. And then that's when he's going to strike. Littlefinger's just going to basically, he's going to come sneak in from the side. I know it.
Yes, of course, because he's always there in the background, sort of plotting, doing.
And this is a story of underdogs, really. And it's like I think while all the other houses are conducting business between each other and what have you, what you got now is you got all the underdogs. They're starting to conspire and they're starting to work together slowly. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, and with Littlefinger, he's the guy that came from nothing, right? So
exactly,
he's had to scratch and claw his way up through the ranks, like Varys. That's why the two of them are like, a lot of people think too. There's a lot of conspiracy theories going around about Game of Thrones. That Varys is actually the guy behind the Sons of Harpy and Marine. I don't buy that, but like the logic being that they started up just right after he arrived. And he has so much power, and he knows so many people that he could theoretically organize that. But to what benefit? Because
I think Varys has the internet personally.
It's the internet. That's his little birds.
No, he just seems to know everything, and that's kind of key to all this. Because if he can get information from everywhere, that means that he has people everywhere. So there might be something to that. You never know.
Yeah. But yeah, his whole thing though, the way that his characters performed is that he has been trying to save Westeros, right? So he believes, like, he obviously believes in Daenerys as being that savior, that monarch that will come in and somehow subdue the Seven Kingdoms, and allow peace to rule in the realm. He seems like he's a bit of an idealist. Maybe he is not who he presents himself to be. Maybe he really is something else underneath the surface. Be interesting to see. But his actions have always, like, he seems to me like, if I was to say, people are asking me, I'd say that he is actually, like, you'd say that him and Littlefinger are almost polar opposites.
Yeah, but the same thing almost.
Yeah, like the same thing, but I see Littlefinger as evil. Like, I see him as a conniving, backstabbing.
Yeah, opportunist.
Opportunist. Very intelligent, very deceitful. always thinking many moves ahead. Same with Varys, except that Varys, what are their motives? Littlefinger wants power. That's what he craves. So he really wants to be king of Westeros.
Varys basically just wants peace for the most part.
That's what he says. So, but at least he, seems to live by it. And I like the relationship between him and Tyrion. They make a good duo.
Yeah, their banter is always entertaining.
Mm-hmm. I think, it's interesting. I like the whole Sons of Harpy sort of side plot there dealing with Meereen, and I find it really interesting. Like, I thought they've done a great job with those scenes and introducing that enemy sort of thing. It's going to be interesting to see. Like, I hope somehow the dragons that Tyrion is now freed are going to play a big part in taking on the Sons of Harpy. Obviously, they're going to play a big part in the future war for Westeros. And that's something that we're going to see in the 7th season. I imagine all this season is going to build up. Probably by the end of the season, you will see. And I don't think we're giving anything away here. We don't really know. I don't think the book readers know. Nobody knows for sure. But by the end of the season, we'll probably see Daenerys leaving for Westeros with a fleet to invade. And whether she goes to Dorne or whether she goes north and links up with either Jon Snow or Sansa. Now, you have to think that Sansa, at least as far as we know, it seems like they're heading towards Castle Black. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I think they're going to go look for Snow, actually.
So we'd have to assume that very soon she'll be at Castle Black. And you'll see.
Yeah, I think when we see them unite, I think some serious stuff's going to start taking place.
Yeah, well, the shit's going to be hitting the fan at that point, because probably by the end of this season, you will see the White Walkers at the wall.
Right.
And something tells me that you'll probably see the ice spiders. Now, the ice spiders are something that hasn't been shown yet. But in the books, of course, it's all lore. It's all, kind of myths that are passed on by the old nannies and stuff like that, right?
Right.
And they're giant ice spiders. That like that great scene. I think it was maybe in the first or second episode of the first season where you had the nanny there telling the story to Bran. And he's like, "Tell me a story." She starts telling a story. He goes, "No, not one of those stories. Tell me, oh, you want to hear about this? You want to hear about the winter? You want to hear about what's to come, right?" And then she talks about them being on their ice spiders. So I think the ice spiders are for real. I don't know about snarks. It's snarks. Snarks and what's the other thing there? If you remember from the first season, because Tyrion laughs about it, and he was laughing about the idea of snarks and something else existing.
Right.
The wall. But of course, then, now if you think about it, now maybe Benjen, now we're probably going to see Benjen Stark at some point. Now, whether he has been, converted, or I don't think he's been killed necessarily.
Right.
But he could be, he could have been taken by the White Walkers. We don't really know. But yeah, Benjen's one of those guys. He's like Gendry. He's still rowing back to King's Landing or whatever, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
We haven't seen him. He's going to come back. I mean, what's the deal with him, right?
And what about the storyline with Lady Stark being a White Walker?
Oh, well, no, she's not. So if folks that are listening, if you've read the books, you know this. What happens is Thoros of Myr. So I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I kind of assumed that Thoros of Myr wasn't going to be the one. We talked about this last week. Wasn't going to be the one that was going to resurrect Jon Snow. That it would be the Red Woman, because how are they going to find him? And that would take forever and bring. Of course, you know how these shows work, though, right? I mean, one minute you're there, next minute you're here. It's like the Sand Snakes. They have the ability to teleport. Everybody's like, how did they get on that ship? Wasn't Tristan gone to King's Landing? Like, how did they manage to? Anyways, I'm digressing with that. But Thoros and Myr. So I thought that it would be the Red Women, that it would be Melisandre that would resurrect Jon Snow, and so yeah, it turned out to be correct. But yeah, Thoros and Myr. Where was I going with that? What was the question that you asked before?
I forgot already.
All right, Thoros and Myr. I like those guys. The Brotherhood without banners, right?
Yes.
And of course, you had Beric Dondarrion.
Oh, I was asking about Lady Stark.
Lady. Oh yeah. Okay, good. That's why it's important, because okay. So what happens with Lady Stark? It's Thoros and Myr and the band, the Brotherhood without banners, that find Lady Stark's corpse floating in the river, not far from Riverrun, or not far from the twins. They just happen to be in that area, and so they take her body out of the water. She's been in the water for like 3 days or something, so she's like kind of fucking yucky and disgusting. And it's Caitlin Stark, not Caitlyn Jenner. Kind of yucky. No, it's not Caitlin, is it? Catherine or whatever. Anyways, they take her, and Thoros and Myr brings her back to life, and becomes Lady Stoneheart. And it's like a real shock. I don't think you're going to see it. Like I thought that they would bring her back. I don't know if it was last season or the season before, like that she would show up in the last episode, and it would be like a WTF. Everybody would be like, "Oh my god," because in the books, the way it's done is it's pretty epic, right?
Right.
Because she comes back, and she can't speak well. She speaks like she's like some kind of ghoul, and her appearance is really like her skin is all pale and bloated, and she looks horrible, right? She looks like some sort of sea witch,
right.
But she's still Caitlin Stark, right? She's still but it's not her. It's like a resurrected, and so she becomes this avenging force, and her whole thing is to go and kill all the Freys. So every time you see or you read her in the books, she's capturing another Frey. And they're fucking terrified, right? Because they go around with the band of brothers, or the band of brothers, Brotherhood without banners, and they're capturing all the Freys that they can, and she's killing them, right? In like gruesome ways, sort of thing. And I really wish that they had fucking brought her in, because I thought that, because it was, to me, it was about like the Red Wedding was such a fucking you want to avenge that, like you gotta
balance that out a bit.
Revenge. I mean, like you gotta kill all the Freys, and you gotta fucking hang them. I mean, you gotta burn them alive. You gotta do something horrible. I mean, they're just
something else.
Biggest backstabbers ever, sort of thing. So that was the satisfaction that you got, because when you read the books, right, and just like you're reading the books, you haven't seen the show. Obviously, like I read the books well before the show, sort of thing. So when you're reading the books and you get to the Red Wedding, it was so shocking, like just as shocking as I imagine people watching the show. Just as shocking as Ned Stark being beheaded, probably even more so, because it wasn't just Robb Stark being killed. It was his wife, his pregnant wife, his beautiful wife, getting stabbed over and over again in the stomach, and then all the Starks were killed. Like they were all killed. It was just like in one shot they wiped out like 95% of the Starks. Like bam, like that. And they did it so well. I mean, the show nailed it. Like the instruments, the song that they started to play, the song that they played.
It's creepy as hell.
Yeah, the song is a Lannister song. It's what's it called? Oh, it's a very well known song, because it's about the Lannisters. What's their holding called? Their coastal sort of city that they have. And
Blackwater?
No. What is it? Castlemere or something like that, right?
Oh, right, Castlemere.
So it was the song that they started to play was the song for the Lannisters. And that's why, like, if you don't know this, because, you know, most people that watch the show probably wouldn't know this, but that's what it was. And that's why and it was a somber sort of start to the song. It's like on a minor key, right? And they started playing it like on the oboe and whatever, and the instruments started playing. So, like, at that point, Catelyn Stark started to realize what had happened, that the Lannisters, you know, had won, that they were going to, that they had, you know, made the deal with the phrase. It's just, it was masterful the way they did it, and it was really one of the most jaw-dropping scenes. So that's why, I mean, for me, that would have been a big payoff to see Lady Stoneheart come back to avenge the Red Wedding, and that's what it was all about. Her character was pure revenge. And so she was brutally killing off any phrase that they could capture. So I don't think you're going to see her, though.
Yeah, I heard they skipped it out. Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but, you know, I understand. I'm not so hard on the show. And I kind of, like, when I was reading the fourth book, it's where George R.R. Martin kind of dropped the ball. It's like the first three books are unbelievable. There's not a slow page. I mean, it's just like
really
bam, bam, bam. Like, so much is happening. But in the fourth book, he starts to introduce all these other characters. And so he goes into areas that, like, you don't hear about any of the characters that you have been reading about the Starks family, you know, Lannisters, this. You start reading about Dorne, you start reading about the Greyjoys, and it's not as interesting. And so it's a lot of people feel that way. I mean, most people that read the books will tell you the first three are unbelievable. Like, they're just like basically what you get in the show times 10 sort of thing, because it's the books, right? It's just great. But by the fourth one, he starts to drop the ball a little bit. But, you know, he still has moments of brilliance, and you see that in the show at times too. So, but yeah, like what they've done with the show, and you could see this because, like, that's the obstacle that the books presented to the show, because, as I said, the fourth book takes a radically different, like, all of a sudden you're dealing with completely new characters. And so if you're looking at it from a television point of view, you spend all this time building up these characters and building up this storyline, and then if you follow strictly the books, all of a sudden, you're not going to hear about all these characters for a long time. You're going to be over in the Iron Islands. You're going to be in Dorne. You're going to be in other places. Now, you know, they're still really interesting stories in themselves, and the characters are still really well done and all that, but it's not the same. So I think that's one of the problems that George R.R. Martin ran into composing it. But we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I really like the show. The best thing about the show has been the casting and the sets and just the production and everything that goes into it.
Right.
You know, they nailed the casting. I mean, there's only a few. I would have eliminated certain characters, like Shay. I thought was the most annoying character ever. Although she was in the books, but she was way more annoying in the show. And I would have ditched her. Although it was pretty satisfying seeing Tyrion kill her in the end there when she was in the tower of the what do you call it there? His father had taken over his position as the king's right hand man. What is that position called? I can't even remember. What is that called? The king's hand. The king's hand.
The king's
called the
hand.
king's hand. Hand of the king. Hand of the king. Right. So in the story, of course, what happens is Tyrion becomes he gets appointed to be hand of the king, even though it's like a temporary thing. But he shows up and he's so awesome. Like and they show this in the show as well. Like he right away he's like putting Joffrey in his place. He's got his big thuggish fucking hill tribe guys with him, and he's got Bran, of course, and like he's got all this swagger and he's going into the whorehouses and all this shit. So it was really, it was really cool. But then, of course, after the Battle of Blackwater, and in the books, Tyrion gets terribly disfigured, by the way. I don't know if people realize this, but like in the show, you know, he's scarred, but it's not like in the books he's actually missing half a nose. Like he looks like a fucking freak, right? And that's something I guess it would have been hard to do, you know, and it would have changed things. But it, you know, like in the books, it's a bigger fucking fu, because he wakes up and then he looks at himself. He's, you know, like he because you see that scene where that's when Podrick saves him, right? When he's fighting the Battle of Blackwater, and the Kingsguard attack him and they slice him in the face, right? And they cut off half his nose while they do that. And so when he you know, he wakes up, he's in this fucking, like, he's been moved out of the tower that he had for himself, which was the Hand of the King, right? Position. And his father's moved in there, and he put him down in a fucking hole, you know, somewhere else in the Red Keep. And he wakes up, and then he finally sees himself, and he is like, his nose is half gone, and he looks like he was a freak before, and he felt like a freak because he was a dwarf. But after the Battle of Blackwater and what happens, he's not just a freak, but he's like horribly disfigured freak. So you don't really get that in the show, which is, I can understand, you know, and it would be difficult to do, but it kind of explains Tyrion a little bit more. Like, explains why he was so fucking angry with his father and ends up killing him right on the shitter. Which they did a great job with. That was a good scene. The crossbow. That was just great. So but yeah, I mean, the show has been great. I mean, you could never have done this show 10, 15 years ago. You didn't have the type of commitment that they put into these shows, because, you know, the Sopranos and shows like that have really changed the way that they do shows.
I agree. For
the better. And you didn't have the CGI, which is important because, you know, you're having dragons and shit like that, right? So, you know, maybe
some of these like shots, like they were just unfilmable like years back. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think Lord of the Rings too. I mean, that's why Lord of the Rings worked so well when they finally did it, because they finally had the technology
to do it. Yeah, to pull it off.
Do it.
Because you could do a real bad job of it. And make
well, I mean, there is bad CGI all the time.
All the time.
The best CGI is CGI you don't notice. Like, you don't know that CGI.
Yeah, it's subtle. Exactly.
Like, when I talk about Star Wars, when we do the Star Wars podcast there, I was really impressed with how the film itself, The Force Awakens, is really well done. Like,
it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, the battle scenes, and they, instead of using CGI, they use as much practical effects as possible, and that's what makes it really feel like a Star Wars movie, because of course the original trilogy was done with practical effects. So, like, for instance, when you see the Millennium Falcon in the battle there where they're going up against the Death Star and Return of the Jedi, and there's all these TIE fighters those are actually like guys with, like, they're holding up black sticks with TIE fighters on them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're actually fucking physically maneuvering the ships. So that's why when you watch it today, it still looks fantastic, because it's not CGI. Like, like, they were actually ahead of their time, doing a lot of what they did in Star Wars, the original.
Absolutely. Well, they invented new techniques on all sorts of areas there.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the big things. Lucas,
like everything from like robotic tracking, like camera tracking, all the way to compositing and what have you.
Yeah. And so I really like what they've done with the new film, although I'm really disturbed by the themes in it, and we'll get into that obviously when we talk about it. But I do think as a spectacle, it's much better than the prequels.
Agreed.
Yeah, and so, like, I see a lot of people very negative about the actual film, and, you know, they made good characters, they made an exciting story. I mean, even though it's a lot of a rehash, it feels fresh, and all that, and they used practical effects. I really like the way they did like Mos Kanata and her particular canteen, which
Mhm.
had that. It was a homage to Mos Eisley, and Mos Eisley is like, to me, is like one of the best things of Star Wars, right? You know, like
Yeah,
all
totally.
freaky creatures and shit like that. And you see right away, like when they walk into Mos Kanata's, is it called Mos Kanata? I don't know what her name exactly is, but you see the wolf guy right away, and that was one of the characters that they had in the canteen scene. That's what the canteen scene was awesome. You know, you had the walrus guy, you had the snaggletooth guy, you had the the devil guy, you had all these funny characters that they threw in. And yeah, I mean that's what was cool about the movie. But I think the themes are pretty heavy, and that's what I'd like to get into. But they did a lot of things right. I look at the I saw the preview. Have you seen it yet for Rogue One?
Excuse me for a second.
I saw the preview for Rogue One there, and it looks like it's going to be a really exciting film. Like it's going to be Star Wars, but you know, hardcore sort of battles. There's not going to be any of the Force apparently in it. It's going to be just dealing with the stealing of the plans of the Death Star. And there's going to be some heavy battle scenes and stuff like that. And it looks pretty cool. I mean, I think it could end up being one of the best Star Wars movies ever. But then once again, you've got a female lead character, which is something that they're really pushing in Star Wars. Yeah. Did you see the Rogue One trailer?
I did.
What did you think?
It looks pretty badass.
Yeah, it does, eh? Got the
really,
on the beach.
It's got that kind of Battlestar Galactica, like, you know, the Re-Envision series. It's got that kind of a flavor to it almost. I think
that's a crazy series too, the Battlestar Galactica. That with the transhumanism and all that.
Oh, sure is, yeah.
That is crazy. I'd have to go back and watch it, and there's like, what is it, 5 or 6 seasons with that?
Oh yeah.
That is heavy. I mean, that show.
Oh, and the spinoff Caprica is even worse because they draw this allegory like Caprica, like this before the Cylon War, so Caprica's not blown up and all that shit. But yeah, it's crazy, man. They have like this holographic internet kind of thing where it's you know kind of like different. It's virtual reality, but like to the 10th degree. It's really insane, and then tie that into the theology that they have and the Cylons. Like, oh, it's just insane, man. Machines trying to become human, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's like a flip flop. You know what I mean?
Well, we're gonna get into that. Obviously, May the 4th, we'll be doing the podcast on Star Wars. So everything Star Wars, the original trilogy, the prequels, and then of course the Force Awakens and the new film, whatever we've got dealing with the latest, and we'll try to touch heavy on the themes.
You, my friend, you have to watch The Expanse.
You have to watch is the holiday special.
What?
You ever seen the holiday special?
No.
No way! You
oh wait! The Star Wars holiday. Yeah, in the 80s. That's right. I do remember that.
See that, dude? Oh my god, the holiday special.
Mark Hamill looks like a lesbian.
Yeah.
He's got so much bloody face.
Carrie Fisher, I don't think she even knows what happened. She was so fucking stoned, like so high on cocaine. And the craziest shit is Lumpy, like Chewbacca's family.
Yeah, they did. That was totally made up. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah,
and it's funny because George Lucas denies having any involvement with that.
George Lucas went so far as to try to track down every copy of the holiday special and burn them. and he thought he had succeeded, but somebody somewhere had it. And, you know, and so you could see it. I think it's on YouTube, and it is like I mean, it is just unbelievable. It's like it's the most embarrassing things. Well, next to what's that one called? The first prequel there.
Going to the store with no pants on.
Oh my god.
No.
That fucking first prequel movie was just the worst. The first two. Boy, it was
Phantom Menace. That was like,
God, that was like one of the worst times I ever had in a movie theater. I was like, I couldn't believe how awful it was. But anyways, we're supposed to be talking about Game of Thrones, so you're like, guys,
we're fast forwarding to Wednesday.
Yeah,
We're just fast forwarding to Wednesday here.
But we're gonna get heavier into Game of Thrones. I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna try and read the 5th book, so we can do more podcasts. Obviously, we've got to, well,
it'll be interesting to come back to this after about 2 or 3 episodes and see where we are.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping to bring a lot of Game of Thrones fans in to listen to these shows. We're also going to do a Mad Max podcast coming up. We're going to go through all Mad Max and the films and the latest one, Fury Road and all that. So that'll be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to doing that. But yeah, Game of Thrones, I mean, it is it's great. It's just awesome. It's so awesome that we have something like this coming to life before us. We are privileged to have this type of entertainment. Even though it's got a lot of crazy themes in it. I would say like one of the crazy themes in Game of Thrones is the homosexuality that they've thrown into the show, which is not nearly as heavy in the books as it is in the show. And so that really took me aback. And I've mentioned that many times before dealing with Game of Thrones, is that like, wow, they really heavily emphasized.
Yeah, they piled it right on too.
Yeah, they piled. Thankfully, thus far, we haven't seen anything this season with that. But when we were dealing with the Flower Knight and what's his name, Stannis' brother there, I've lost his name for a second there.
Stannis' brother?
Yeah, well, the other Baratheon, right?
Right.
You had Robert, you had Stannis, and then you had the gay one.
Right.
That everybody liked, right?
I call him Chip.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but
just call him Chip.
Yeah, he was the one, of course, that Brienne of Tarth became enamored with. That was actually a good story, though, dealing with Brienne of Tarth, where she tells the story about how everybody, because that, like, another thing too, dealing with Brienne of Tarth, she is much more better looking in the show than she is in the books. In the books, she is hideous. Like, she is like fucking, she is like bucktooth fucking, really ugly. And so, and she is not like the woman playing her is not an ugly.
Hey, and she's also in Star Wars.
Yes, and that's going to be a big thing, Captain Phasma. But yeah, we got to stay off Star Wars. We can't stay off Star Wars. There's a big crossover. Obviously, there's a lot of actors that are in both, and that is to be expected when they're the biggest sort of cultural phenomena out there right now.
Yeah. Well, but, I'm sure when they're making a Star Wars movie, a lot of actors are going to be submitting for that.
Yeah.
There'll be auditions like going crazy.
For sure. But yeah, in the books, Brienne of Tarth is like the ugliest woman out there, and she's a big beast of a woman. So, and they got a great actress to play her. So I have no complaints whatsoever about her role, although she just doesn't look the part. But they do that in shows. Like a great example is Boardwalk Empire.
Oh yeah, I love that show. Yeah,
that's a great show. If you're a fan of gangster type movies and shit like that, you'll love that show, because it's like it's just Atlantic City and Prohibition era, and I
like what they did with some of the actual historical like people, like the historical characters. Like they kind of dwelled into their life a little bit more. It was kind of like,
and they're all like
good backstory.
They're all real characters. I think they did a good job with. I thought Al Capone was played well.
Yeah. Excellent.
Luciano, not so well. Not so accurate to the character, but maybe he was.
Lucky Luciano.
Yeah. What was the other guy? His the Jewish guy there. His little buddy.
Yeah. I like him.
Yeah, he was a good character. But Nucky Thompson himself is totally non-representative. I mean, he was a completely different character in real life. Yeah, Nucky Thompson, if I'm not mistaken, was like 6'4". He was like a big bear of a man. Like, he was a physically fucking intimidating guy. So you've taken like with and I love the actor. I mean,
Yeah, Steve Buscemi's awesome.
he's amazing. He's one of the best, right? I love him. But he is a radically different physical specimen than the actual Nucky Thompson is. So I think that like if I was the one making the show, as much as like Steve Buscemi, and I would have definitely cast him in some other role. But obviously he's the biggest actor, so they gave him a role.
Probably someone owed him a favor, I bet you.
yeah, exactly. No, but you know, they maybe they came up with the show, and then they got Steve Buscemi, and they're like, okay, well, let's make the character based around him. So they made him into a softer, sort of more intellectual type mobster.
Yeah.
But in real life, Nucky Thompson was a big ass, tough ass motherfucking Irish, kind of guy that probably did beat people to death with his own hands. So that was, and some of the other characters were changed.
I like that Italian psychopath in Boardwalk Empire. You might know the one I'm talking about.
Al Capone?
Oh no, not him. No, the other guy. He was coming in looking for somebody. I forget what it was now. It's been a while since I saw that season.
I like Ace Rothstein. I thought they did a great job with him.
Rothstein, yeah.
He was terrific. The actor that played him was.
Do you remember the scene where they got the guys buried with just their heads sticking out?
Oh no, yeah, I know the guy you're talking about. Yeah, that guy was awesome. The Jim.
Yeah. He was brilliant. Oh,
yeah, he was one of the best characters
ever.
Yeah. Where he beat the guy with the shovel. That was brutal. They had a guy buried up to his neck in sand, and he came out with a shovel and just started whacking.
Played golf.
Wow. But yeah, we're hearing people are like, "Hey, man, this is supposed to be Game of Thrones. What are you talking about?" Here we go. Star Wars to fucking Boardwalk Empire to Daredevil to.
I think we're getting the point across is that we'll talk about pretty much any show.
Yeah, and I hope that's okay with folks. It is a bit of a golden arrow when you think about the quality of those shows. I can tell you, there's a different level of quality that's been brought since, say, The Sopranos aired. That you can expect these shows. That's why I was so surprised when I saw Daredevil. I was like, wow, they nailed it. And for a smaller show,
they're able to tell the story more slowly too.
Yeah, I love that. Well, The Wire, that's why it's my favorite show.
Yeah.
It's the way that the story unfolds in a completely non-linear sort of fashion. Whereas Game of Thrones, obviously, Game of Thrones is based on the material. And that's the problem. I guess if you are the producers, these guys, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, these guys get fucking assaulted all the time by the critics because... Of course, anybody that's read the books is going to be pissed off at everything you do every time you alter even slightly from the books. And they've radically changed things and they've omitted. But then again, you understand if you can just separate the idea that a book you can spend 4 or 5 pages describing somebody's hair or something like that, but in a TV show you have to be a lot more condensed, and that's why I say I kind of stick up for these guys a little bit. I'm not happy with everything they've done, obviously, but when it comes to like where I felt George R.R. Martin kind of dropped the ball a bit was in the 4th book, where he started to go into Dorne, he started to go into the Iron Islands and stuff like that, and he introduced all these new characters, and meanwhile everybody that's reading is like, I want to know what's happening with what's happening with Brienne, or I want to know what's happening with the Onion Knight, or I want to know what's happening with this character or that character, and you're like, page after page, you're reading chapter after chapter. And you're like, oh no, we're back in the Iron Islands. Oh no, we're back at Dorne. Oh no, we're back here. It's like, and it's Cersei. Like, there's so much Cersei. He goes on and on about Cersei. So, I can see why they have changed a lot of things, and you just gotta separate it. Game of Thrones is Game of Thrones. The show, and the books are, they're always going to be better, of course.
Yeah, they're a separate entity, and that's good as long as they don't, if you try too hard and fail miserably at doing it, then it would just suck as a show, right?
Yeah, exactly.
if they're able to take it, rework it, manipulate it, because I mean, you got everything from budgetary constraints to not being able to employ that many actors in a season. Like, you know, you can only have so many front runners. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we talked about it last week when we were talking about the actor that played Stannis.
Right.
And he came out, kind of slammed the show, and he's like, I have no idea what the fuck they were doing. You know, like, I think, and I could understand him because, like, I still like WTF. You know, like the whole meme on the Game of Thrones show. I mean, he was one of the most popular characters, and there was a meme going around, Stannis the Menace, because he was so kick ass at the Battle of Blackwater, and he's the first guy to jump over the ship. You know, like they blow up half his fleet. He doesn't give a fuck. He jumps over the ship. He's the first one to climb the wall. I mean, the guy next to him gets his head smashed in. Doesn't stop him for a second. Climbs up the wall. Starts killing people left, right, and center. You know, kicking ass. And rightfully, he should have won, right? But of course, Lord Tywin comes back to save the day with the Flower Knights, the Martells, or not the Martells.
That reminds me of a scene from Monty Python's The Holy Grail.
Which one?
Oh, the one where what's his face comes running in and just starts slaughtering everybody, like he's just single-handedly.
The Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I'm trying to think which the
That's when it comes into the French castle to rescue.
Remember? The music starts playing.
Yeah,
and drops and he's like apologizing, and then all of a sudden the music starts playing again. He starts killing everybody. It was the funniest movie ever made. Oh my god, I love those Monty Pythons. They're just terrific.
No, but you're right. Stannis was just like that. He just comes in storming the place. They're throwing like 100-pound rocks off the thing, and he's dodging them.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He was badass, and he seemed to have a code. Like even with the Onion Knight, so the Davos, the sea pirate, right, the smuggler.
Yeah.
So his story being a smuggler and all that, and he smuggled in onions and what else was it? It was like, okay, so Storm End. So Storm End is and we haven't seen Storm End in the show. As far as I know, we haven't seen it. So Storm End is on the coast of Westeros. I don't have a map in front of me, so I can't really explain exactly where it is, but it was one of I think it's the historic sort of Baratheon stronghold, right? It's where the Baratheon family comes from.
Right.
So he was under siege. So during the war that preceded the War of the Five Kings sort of thing, he was under siege for forever, for like a year or more than a year at Storm's End. And so Davos, the Onion Knight, came in. He heard about what was going on, and so he knew that they were starving and they had no food. So he smuggled some onions. And I don't know if it was onions and pork or something. I don't know, but it was onions, right? Like it was the big thing that he was able to smuggle in his boat. And Storm's End was like the reason why it has the name Storm's End is that it's like the most treacherous waters around it, sort of thing. There's always storms and there's always huge waves and shit. So this guy is like a super smuggler, and he was able to smuggle in food, which saved Stannis and his men. So Stannis, you know, because of his morals, said to Davos, he said, okay, you know, you saved our you know, our lives and shit like that, but you were a smuggler. So he cut off the fingers on one hand. You don't really see it because obviously that's an effect that they would have to constantly digitize. So I don't know how. I don't really pay attention to. It's not all the fingers. It's like the right above the knuckle, okay,
right,
on one hand. So what happened was Stannis cut off.
Towels at this time of night. Okay.
Yeah, Stannis cut off the fingers of Davos on one hand, just above the knuckles, and
sorry about that.
Yeah, Davos kept those, and he still has them on him, like in a little little bag, a little leather bag that he carries around his neck. He keeps the bones of those fingers as a reminder, because he was a smuggler, so he had to pay a price for his past life, his past vices. But Stannis was a a strong, ethical sort of king, and that's how Stannis's character was built up. And that's why one of the reasons, I guess you could say, in the show that he became a fan favorite is because he was like, he wasn't, he had no personality. I mean, he wasn't going to win any personality contest, but he was a stoic sort of, strong-minded, ethical type of king who believed in some sort of code of honor. And that's why Davos was so devoted to him. But then in the end, he fucking burns his daughter. So,
That was a real dick move.
You think? Oh my God. And when you think about that, I'll be there in 1 sec, Rob. I just gotta blow my nose. Think about that.
He shall return.
I'm here. I just had to grab a Kleenex. He went. So he was like, he conquered, or he defeated. He defeated the wildlings, right, in the battle there north of the wall. So that was like a big moment because the wildlings were going to presumably scale the wall. I mean, they were going to take Castle Black and all that, right?
Right.
And they had that one battle, and then they pulled back. They were pushed back, and then they were going to come forth again, sort of thing. They just keep coming in waves. Stannis came in with his army that he had gotten commissioned by the Iron Bank, right? The
right.
Bank of Brathos or Bravos. Those guys are the real power shakers and movers. I always wanted to do a video on the Bank of Bravos and all that, how it's a mirror image of, say, the Federal Reserve.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, they're
That'd be interesting.
There's no doubt about it. So, so he came in, defeated the wildlings, saved Castle Black, and then, was going to go, and next thing he was going to do, of course, was to take back Winterfell from the Boltons. And then everything goes wrong. I mean, it's like Murphy's Law. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and it went so wrong to the point.
It went sideways and upside down.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of fans of the books were very, very disappointed with what happened in the show, not knowing at that point, because the battle that they were going to have hadn't taken place in the books.
Right.
So it's supposed to come out in the next book, and he is supposed to kill his daughter. So he kind of gave them, the producers, the knowledge that was what was going to happen, so that they were given the okay to go and do that with this character. But when that happened, that scene, I mean, for me, I think for almost anybody that read the books, everybody and people that were a fan, the Stannis, the Manus, I mean, it was like, oh my God. I mean, like, they took the guy that seemed to have, some sort of code of ethics, and they turned him upside down, just like that. Like, so, it's bad enough that he gets deserted, right? But I mean, you think about what happens. So the winners, is particularly tough. He's waiting for, of course, the thaws to come so that they can march forward and take Winterfell. So he goes to the Red Women, and because their men are starting to lose their supplies and they're starving and people are starting to desert, he makes the decision that he's going to execute his own daughter in order to win the favor of the Red God. And then what happens, right? Okay, he kills his daughter. He loses instantly half of his men. You can't blame them. I mean, the sellswords, everyone. He loses all his cavalry, which is, that's it. I mean, well, because what happens is he gets attacked by cavalry. If you don't have cavalry to repel cavalry, you're in a pretty bad position, right?
Yeah.
So he loses that. Then it's, his wife fucking commits suicide. And then the Red Woman abandons him, and he shows up at Winterfell, a broken man with a broken army, and they're just ripe for the picking, and they get fucking slaughtered by Ramsay Snow, of all people, a guy that has no military experience really whatsoever, and you're talking about Stannis, who's won all these battles, who is, that's why he was so capable, because he won a bunch of battles before. He was like a really successful fighter and leader. Going way back into the history of Westeros, dealing with Robert Baratheon. Robert Baratheon hated him, but used him, sort of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
His brother. So yeah, it was a really disappointing outcome for that character. You have to scratch your head and you have to say, like, what was the whole point of that character? And that's kind of how that actor reacted to it. He was like, I don't think he knew until he got to that point that was going to happen. And the actor did a great job.
Somebody in the chat there just mentioned he never had ethics. He killed his own brother. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, but you could say there. Now, I agree with that. I mean, and that's the way Brienne of Tarth and others would look at it.
Yeah.
But they were going to duke it out. Okay, so the way you could look at that scene is you could say that saved thousands of people from dying.
Right.
Because there was going to be a massive battle between their armies. So, in a way, killing the brother saved thousands, tens of thousands, potentially, of lives and stopped a massive battle from happening. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And his brother was a jerk anyways. I mean, he was the gay guy, of course. He was flamboyant and personable and all that, but he wasn't going to be a good king. He was going to play king. For him, being king was to, enjoy life and enjoy, all the privileges of being a king. Whereas with Stannis, it was purely duty and everything he had to do. Like, he's one of these guys. He's just so, and I'm not standing, like, don't get me wrong.
Wasn't it the shadow demon that killed was it the shadow demon that killed the king?
Yeah. And why is it we can't remember the name of that king? We have to get hang on a second here. I'll look it up real quickly here. I should have that on hand. Of course, it's not always easy to remember. What are they? The Baratheons.
Baratheons characters. They won't fit on
Baratheon brothers, right? So, and as soon as I see it, I'll be like, yeah, Renly. So it's Renly, right? So, yeah, Renly. I don't think Robert liked Renly either. I don't think, but Renly was the popular one because he was always at all the events, right? The weddings, the jousting. He was the life of the party. He lived to be in the royal circles. He loved to gossip. He loved to all that shit. And of course, Stannis was stoic and fucking, he was a complete polar opposite. So I can see where they're saying, and I'm not saying, like, obviously that's a big thing. Like, when he made that decision to use the Red Woman to kill Renly, he kind of sealed his own faith, right? Because he then created...
In a cosmic karma kind of way.
Yeah, because then Brienne of Tarth that was her mission, was to go and kill him.
Right.
So, he had this massive beast of a woman that, was an epic fucking sword swinging, person who was going to come and fuck him up no matter what, in the end. So, and that's what happened in the end. But, and he did turn to the Red Woman. And also, you could say even further, you could say this, the folks in the chat that don't like Stannis. One of the first scenes we see, if it's not the first scene, I can't remember because I get the books in the show mixed up, but it's on the beach, and they're burning. First, they're burning all the gods, the 7 gods, right? The big wooden effigies that they have of them, and then they're fucking burning people that are loyal to those gods, right? And they're burning people that, like, he got into this sort of cycle where, the Red Women wanted to burn anybody that was either, wanted to keep the old gods or that wouldn't do what Stannis wanted them to do, or wouldn't fight for Stannis, sort of thing. So they started killing a lot of people, sacrificing them. So, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, for sure. I'm not a Stannis, the Manus fan at all. I never have been. I just, like... I can question his arc somewhat and say WTF was the point. You know, like it just seems like his character, in the end, it wasn't even a tragedy. It was like everybody around him was a tragedy. You know, like his own man fucking died, bled, and got slaughtered. His own family, right? And for what? For what? In the end, I guess you could say, well, the Onion Knight is going to be a massive Davos, right? He you know, if we're talking about good characters, I'd say he's one of the best characters in the show. He is like the closest to, say, Ned Stark, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Being a guy motivated by morals and ethics, sort of thing, and you know, trying to live his life by a code. You know, so maybe that's going to be.
If you had a choice, what's your pick for favorite character?
Well, that's you know, favorite character.
It's really hard.
Yeah, like the character that I would most associate with, or the character that I think is best portrayed, or the character that is the most amusing. I mean, there's a lot of different. I like Tyrion. I think most people do.
Mm-hmm.
For many obvious reasons. You know, he's an underdog type guy. He, you know, comes from a rich family, but yet he was always an outcast. He has a great sense of humor. He drinks. He loves women.
Yeah.
You know,
it's funny because I was going to say the same thing about Bran. He's one of my favorite characters.
I love Bran. You know, one of the guys I liked the most was if you remember when they were leading, I can't remember the name of the character. I got to remember him because he was awesome, and the guy that they got to play him was fantastic here. It was the Night's Watch. When they were moving the Knights, when they were, you know, they went to King's Landing. So when Gendry and Arya were taken by the Night's Watch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were brought, or they were on their way, trying to make their way back to the wall. The guy that was leading them, if you remember, he was an old crusty captain, but he was wise. He was quick with his knife and shit like that. Like he had the scene with the King's Guard where he pulled out he had the dagger and he's like, I could slice off your, you know, it's just, oh, that guy was amazing.
Right.
I thought he was great. And then like the scene where he died and you know, he was shot by a crossbow and he's like, the thing that sucks about crossbows? And it's like, and before the guy has a chance to answer, he's like, it takes too long to reload, and he cuts the guy down, right? But he was already dying at that point. If you remember that guy,
yeah, I remember. I remember.
I thought he was great. He was a really good character in the show, albeit rather briefly. Who other characters do I really like? I like Varys.
Yeah, he's interesting. He's definitely definitely an enigmatic character for sure.
Yeah, I like him. Robb Stark was okay. I mean, I could totally see why he went for the babe. Right. Anybody would have gone for her. But at the same time, you know, he kind of sealed his own faith by his cock.
Yeah,
more or less, right? But he was. I liked what's his name, Mormont, from Bear Island. There, Jorah Mormont.
Right.
I think like the actor that plays him is terrific. Like there's scenes, like the scenes with Daenerys, like the scenes where you could see how much he's in love with her. Yeah. Without saying anything, just the expression on his face, and I'm like, that guy's a serious fucking actor. He is terrific. That guy.
He is pretty good. Actually, characters, he's good. It's a good character as well. I think he's probably one of the most honorable characters on the show, and he gets a pretty shitty deal.
Yeah, I agree. I like his character a lot, and he is. So he's disgraced, right? And he is forced to leave Westeros because of his involvement in slave trading. Now he has his reasons for doing that. So, and I won't get into the whole thing, but you know, he had his reasons for doing so. So he's from Bear Mountain. I liked his father a lot too. I thought he was great. The commander there, of the Night's Watch. Of course, when you see Ian Glenn's the actor, by the way, that plays him. He's a terrific actor. Everybody they've got, I mean, pretty much every actor they've got on the show is top notch. They really went out and got the best actors. But yeah, I liked his father a lot, the old bear, the great big guy there that was the commander, the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. And I love the scene in Craster's Keep where he gets killed. Although, man, talk about being backstabbed. He's backstabbed in the worst of ways, right? When he's like trying to discipline his men and they just flip on him and they turn. And that's a great scene. It was great in the books and they did a great job. That guy with the knives too was really well done. The guy from Fleabottom there, right? That Jon Snow ended up fighting. He was like total badass. Right. I remember that scene. That was great because he was like one of these guys who was a cutthroat in Fleabottom in King's Landing. So in the books, they kind of built up his story. So, he had this reputation of being like so fast with knives, right? And I thought they did a great job. The actor that played him in the show was great as well. Even though he's a total scumbag, though.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
that's where you get the most creative acting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's just probably be a lot of fun to play.
Well, that's the thing about the show is that, even the characters you hate they're fun to hate. Like, Joffrey.
Exactly.
I thought the kid that played Joffrey was fantastic. I mean, couldn't have been better. I mean, he just
you couldn't hate him more.
You couldn't hate him more. I mean, he was so perfect as Joffrey. I mean, you instantly fucking hated the guy. You only ended up hating him more and more every time you saw him. So when he finally did die, and he died a horrible death, right? Getting poisoned at his own wedding. And at that point, he was so awful. I mean, what he did, and of course it was, what's her name there? The Tyrell that killed him. The old fucking... the bitch there, the Queen of what do they call her? Queen of Thorns.
That's right.
Killed him, right. And that's you know that in the books. I think you can see it maybe in the show.
They had it for sure.
Yeah.
I can't remember how now, but I remember.
Yeah, no, it was the necklace.
Necklace bits, yeah.
Yeah, the necklace. She put it in his cup of wine, and then Tyrion, of course, was instantly blamed for it. That was just great the way it was done. I mean, the whole build up, it was such a huge payoff. It was one of those scenes everybody was just dying to see this guy die. Like, everybody wanted Joffrey dead, and it finally got the payoff, and it was at the perfect moment because he had his own wedding and he was such a fucking asshole in his own wedding, especially to Tyrion. I mean, and then he brought out the dwarfs to do the whole
the battle reenactments.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was just crazy. Rubbing in it, and it was just amazing. Like the standoff between those two characters, and so I really liked Tyrion. I like Bran. I think he's a great character too. I think he's a lot bigger in the show than he was in the books. If I'm not mistaken, because he kind of got popular. Like, people really liked him. I like the Hound.
Yeah, he's got the best one-liners.
I like that. The Hound is one of my favorite characters.
The Hound, yeah, I agree.
I love the Hound. I think he
would almost go up as my favorite character.
Yeah, I mean, like, you got to. First of all, he saved fucking Sansa, right? When she's gonna get gang raped, and murdered.
He's obviously got a code of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, like, he never had a chance. So his older brother's the biggest psychopath in Westeros.
Yeah.
Who killed his own father, by the way. They said that the Mountain killed his first man when he was like 12 years old. Like, he was already a fucking giant at that point. And so of course you learn that. I think it happens the same way in the books as it does in the show, where it's Littlefinger and he tells Sansa the story about how when the Mountain came home and he found the Hound playing Sandor playing with one of his toys, he fucking grabbed his head and pushed it into the fire in the embers, right, and burned his face off. So I mean, you got a character there with the Hound, and he's tough as nails, and yet there is something more there. Like, he's not completely heartless. Like, you see the scene where he gives Sansa the cloth to wipe her face,
Right.
you know, and just little things like that. Of course, he saves her, so he develops something for Sansa. Also, he saves the flower, the gay flower. What's his name there? From Loras, right. Sir Loras. I think of brave Sir Robin. You know. But yes, every time I think of Loras, I think of brave Sir Robin.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I guess it's obvious. But yeah, the Flower Knight, he saved him too at the joust, right? And you know, so like, and I, you know, the way that his character was killed is completely different than the books. In the books, actually, the theory is that he's not dead, and I don't think he's dead in the story either. By the way,
right?
In the television show, I don't think.
Yeah, we didn't actually see him die or hear him die or nothing.
No, and so yeah, and he is also a fan favorite, I believe. You know, that doesn't happen. He doesn't fight Brienne, but it is an epic scene. But in many ways, it's again the whole feminist sort of theme that's being pushed heavily into all elements of our culture.
Yeah.
And that definitely was not in the books. Those people, those two never came anywhere near each other. So yeah, the Hound. I just like his character a lot. You know, even at the Red Wedding, you know. And Arya was saying, I'm gonna fucking, you know, stab you. You know, the first chance I get, I'm gonna fucking, you know, stab you in the eye or whatever. He knocks her out, right, and saves her, takes her away. I mean, she would have been dead for sure. From the Red Wedding at the Freys at the Twins, right? So he actually does a lot of good things. He saved Sansa Stark. You know, and the battle, one of the funniest scenes too, of course, is the Battle of the Blackwater, where he's out there and he's kicking the shit, and all of a sudden there's fire everywhere because, you know, all the wildfire, and all the ships are burning and there's people burning, and he's terrified of flames. It's the only thing he's scared of. And then he just fucking, you know, he hates the fucking king, so he you know, he leaves the battle, and then
screw this.
They're yelling at him like, "What do you?" I think it's Tyrion's yelling at him, "Get back out there, Sandor," you know, and he's like, "Fuck the battle, fuck this, fuck that, fuck the king."
I'm out. Peace.
Right? So yeah, I love the Hound. I really hope he does come back and gets his revenge against his brother. That would be an epic scene, of course, if he was to face off against the mutated mountain, Robert the Strong now. And I think maybe you'll see that. I think you will see the Hound again. He's just that popular. And he's the guy that played him's a great actor. You know, yeah, it's definitely one of the best characters.
And not only that, like the Mountain and the Hound are these two colossal characters overall. And, they're almost like demigods in the show, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Hound is also one of the best fighters as well. I mean, he's a total brutal. Like that scene where he almost fought Bran, not in the books at all, but it was a great scene. Like they were real tense right before the battle, and then of course you hear the horns blow, sort of thing, just when they're about to face off, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was a good scene because they're similar characters, the two.
Yeah, and if they did fight to the death, one of them, you know, would lose a character.
Yeah,
that would be horrible.
But, unfortunately, that would be the end of Bran.
Yeah, right.
Sorry to say, but Bran is great, but yeah.
Well, he made short work of that one night there when he battled for Tyrion.
Oh yeah, in the whatchamacallit there, the Veil.
Yes.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was a great. Oh, I love so much of the show, like how they've done the scenes and the characters and how they portrayed them.
The moon window is pretty awesome.
Yeah, the moon. Yeah, it was great. The kid suckling on his mother's tit. And he's
how weird does that get?
Yeah, that was fucked up. That was crazy. Oh,
like,
that was like the first season too, eh?
it's like a medieval hillbillies or something. Like, what's going on up there?
No, they've done a great job. The casting has been sensational. I mean, you
Yeah,
could
no, very well
not
done.
imagine anyone else playing these characters. I really like that they brought Max von Sydow in now. He's another terrific actor to play the three-eyed raven guy, right, which you saw with Bran. So you're going to see a lot more of him. I thought Jonathan Pryce as the Sparrow, he's terrific. What a great actor he is as well. So, you know, there's other characters. I mean, do you have any favorites that we didn't mention?
Let me think here. Well, I do like Littlefinger as a character. I mean, I hate the guy. I think he's a
good actor.
Yeah, I think he's just really well acted. Like, he's meticulous.
Oh, he is. So there's no doubt they nailed that character.
Yeah. I loved hating Joffrey for sure. Like, I hated that little prick. I wanted him to get carled.
I really liked the Red Viper of Dorne. That actor was fantastic. He nailed the character. Although I would leave out all the gay shit that they threw in there.
Yeah.
But he nailed that character right up till the end when he was gloating and all that and trying to get the mountain to admit. That was terrific. He was a great character. He had that, you know, he was just...
Yeah, he was really good.
Living for the moment all the time. You know, I really liked that type, you know, and he was so different because he was from Dorne, and you could see that he started to really have respect for Tyrion. And, you know, it was great. So that's another great character. Unfortunately, we don't see enough of Dorne, and Dorne is fascinating. So it would be really cool to have a lot more of Dorne in the story, but I understand.
Maybe a spinoff.
yeah. At the wall, let's see what other characters were there. I actually, Alistair Thorne is a good character. I mean, I hate the guy, but he's really well portrayed. Like, you hate him, you know, but you understand him to a sense, right? Like, and he actually proved himself in the battle there, the Battle of the Wall, when he was like really kick ass, and he was killing a lot of the wildlings, and then he had that big epic battle with Tormund Giantsbane.
Right.
So, you know, he's an interesting character too. Sir Janos Slynt, I thought they nailed that character as well. One of my favorite scenes in all of Game of Thrones is when Jon Snow cuts his head off. I thought that was just amazing because, you know, like the way that it made it look like he was going to stop, and he's like, I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry. I'm a coward and all this.
Nope.
And he cuts his head off, and it was like, yeah,
there it goes.
man. I loved it. I would have done the exact same thing. You know, it's like, he's a coward. That's the biggest reason why you cut his head off. But he also was the character that was responsible for Ned Stark. You know, if it weren't for him, Ned Stark would still be alive. Right. He was the commander of the City Watch in King's Landing. So he, at that scene there in, you know, where at that scene in the throne room,
right,
where, you know, Ned Stark was going to do the honorable thing. He wasn't going to kill anyone. You know, he wanted to take them prisoner, and then he would, you know, do the right thing.
Yeah.
Another character I really like is Thoros Amir. Even though he's, you know, he's a drunk and all that, I thought the actor that they got to play him was fantastic. I mean, I hope to see him again. I really liked him because, you know, the black strap rum, you know, and he's you know, his hair's all fucking long. He's just a crazy, wily priest, drunken priest, and yet he has this ability that the Red God has given him to resurrect people over and over again. So he is the guy that resurrects in the books, of course, Lady Stoneheart, Catelyn Stark, right? So, you know, that is, you know, his character is hilarious. It's just a funny character. So I really like, you know, like I find like almost everyone in Game of Thrones is perfectly cast. Like there are a few here and there that I would change. Even Ramsay, because Ramsay Snow in the book's completely different. I mean, he's like a hideous looking character. So in the show, he's all clean cut and all that. So they changed that. but the actor does a tremendously great job. You know, you can see, you know, the psychopathy coming forth sort of thing, how he enjoys so much. Like they made Ramsay Snow now in the show to be
he's had a lot of FaceTime if you think about it on the show. Like they've really been sketching him out for a long time. You know what I mean? Like they've really been.
Well, yeah, they've done it a lot differently from the books. A lot differently.
Really?
It's really a lot changed, but I think they did a great job with it, and it's more condensed. But he is, you know, he ends up doing a lot of things different. But yeah, he's a complete psycho either way. But nonetheless, yeah, Theon too is a really interesting character. You know, you gotta like, in terms of story or character arcs, Theon Greyjoy has one of the biggest.
Yeah, you're right. I agree.
Because he's still, like, I mean, he has gone from being so cocksure and, you know, you know, and then, you know, being Robb Stark's right-hand man, and then betraying the Starks, taking over Winterfell, then, you know, having a complete fucking, the worst possible, being tortured, getting fucking
children killed.
Oh my God, getting his dick cut off. I mean, just the fucking hell that this guy's been through.
Yeah.
And yet, you almost feel like now, at this point, he's at that point where he's starting to become a good person. Like he really, he saves Sansa, right? Helps her get towards the wall. Now he's going back, of course, to the Iron Islands. So we're going to see what's going to happen with this character, and I have no idea what happens. But you know, yeah, interesting. Everyone is so well cast, and there's very few characters that I didn't like in the show. Like, even if I hated them, I still like them as characters. Like I say, Janos Slynt, Joffrey Baratheon. You know, there's characters that you love to hate, and that's a sign of great casting, of great acting, where you know they're playing the role so well that, you know, you get the reaction exactly that you want from the audience, sort of thing. So you got to tip your hat. The best thing about the show is how well it's been cast, and if you look, I don't know if you've got this, if you're subbed to this, Rob, or anybody out there that's listening to this, Game of Thrones has a YouTube channel, which I've been subbed to, and they show you all these extras, like filming locations. I find it fascinating. Right?
Oh, right on.
They show all the different filming locations, where the sets take place, and they show the sets themselves being built. They show the costumes being designed. They show the weapons. Like, there's so much work that is going into the show.
Oh, yeah.
And that, when you see all that, and then you see all the passion and all the people that are so much into it, it is special. You know, like they're going the extra mile for the show, and it's nice to see this. Like, I'm hoping that there'll be more shows like this, because there's a lot of, I mean, like, in terms of fantasy, there's a lot of great fantasy books and series out there that could be done. I think this is one of the best ones, but there's definitely a lot of other ones that could be done. And science fiction as well, especially with CGI becoming more and more affordable and easier to do, the technology being there. I'd like to see a lot of classic, you know, science fiction books being tackled now and brought into series, because the best thing about a series, and we talked before about Battlestar Galactica, 5-6 seasons. I mean, you have a lot of, I mean, like, when you compare that to a movie, so a movie's 2-3 hours, right? So, you know, a movie is great if it's going to be a shorter thing, but if it's going to be, if you want a story to unfold, like a book.
You know, there's another one they did there, Dusk Till Dawn. Mm-hmm. Well, they did that into a series. Did you know that?
No. Is that a vampire?
Yeah, basically it's the same movie, but it's just expanded out into like 5 or 6 episodes. So it plays out the exact movie that you know, the 2-hour movie, but it concentrates on key moments. It's really good.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I'm not a big television watcher, never have been.
Nor am I. No.
I got into certain shows. So I got into Sopranos, obviously, like most people. I used to watch Oz, which would be, wow, that's a crazy fucking show if there ever was one in terms of New World Order, sort of all predictive programming and everything that goes into it. Oz is, I mean, in many ways, without a show like Oz, there wouldn't be Game of Thrones. There wouldn't be all these other shows because it was really ahead of its time.
Yeah, it was breaking all those kind of content.
Yeah, and that's a hardcore show. And there's oh my God, there's so much in that. And I think that conditioned a lot of people into the LGBT as well because the gay themes in Oz were massive. So, but then you think, like, I've watched some of these shows. Like, I'm watching Daredevil. I'm in the second season, like you are now.
Yep.
And I'm so impressed. Like, the filming, like some of the battle scenes, just are the fighting and the build up. And
I'm just super glad they don't go with any gimmicks. Like, it's not gimmicky. Yeah, because
I was watching it the other night, and it was the scene, you know, because I mean, like, wow. I mean, what episode are you on in Daredevil?
I think it's 2-4. Yes, fourth episode.
Okay, so you've seen like the Irish.
Yeah, they all got.
Oh my God, I love the way that they did that. It's just unbelievable. It's like they bring in these characters and they're so badass, and they're gonna fuck up everything. They go around, they fuck up a bunch of things, then they get fucked up, sort of thing. The way the show is filmed is so well. There's so much style to it. The like, people, if you've read Daredevil, for instance, the rooftops, that's where most of the action takes place. And so Daredevil's always up on the roofs, and there's always these old water towers and shit. It's Hell's Kitchen, right? New York. And they nailed that. Like, the show has that feel to it. Even his costume, the way that it's been developing, you know, it's like it started off with just a black mask sort of thing, half his face. Now he's got, you know, he's getting continually better. They did a tremendous job with that show. That show is, for a smaller type show, wow. And I the action scenes, like the fighting scenes, wow.
You know the Daredevil movie they did with the freaking Ben Affleck there.
Oh, I'll never watch it.
it was horrible anyway.
It was horrible.
I mean, but it had gimmicks, like, you know, like it would show, like, you know, special effects version, what he could see, like as if he could see like sonar and all this. And they just went with the gimmicks. It was horrible.
Yeah, and the show doesn't do that.
The show doesn't do it at all. Like, they
nailed
rely on acting. Yeah, they rely on decent acting.
In the first season, they had the Kingpin, and the guy that played the Kingpin, wow,
he was over the top. Yeah,
I mean, he was fan-fucking-tastic. I mean,
the scene with the car door was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to, you know, like if you were to ask me, reading the comic as a kid, and I used to collect the comics and all that, how would I portray the Kingpin? That's how I'd do it. They nailed it. And they made him into a total badass, but he's also very complex. You know, he's not a one-dimensional character. He's really, and the acting and the tension, the way it's built up. And the second season seems even better. I mean, like, wow. I mean, they've done a tremendously great job with that show. So, like, that gives me a lot of hope. And I imagine there's a lot of shows out there that I just haven't discovered that are really good. And I really like that because, like, it's fun to get into something that you can watch several you know, like a season. Like, I did that with Sopranos, for instance. You know, we'd go with my girlfriend or whatever at the time, we'd go and we'd get like one season at a time. We just marathon it.
Well, I promise you, if you download The Expanse, you won't be able to not watch more than one in a row. Like, you just you just want to keep watching it.
It's and I think that is like where, hopefully, I mean, that's the good thing about where, you know, some of this entertainment is going, is that instead of having the, you know, many people were accustomed to in the 80s and 90s, that sort of, you know, the typical cop show, Hill Street Blues, you know, things like that, where, you know, you have, you know, each episode has a formula to it, and you have, you know, like a story of a prologue, and then you have, you know, the protagonist, antagonist, and then you have the climax, and then you have the epilogue. And then you get into shows like Oz, and it's like, wow, it's like they're like the formula is thrown out the door. And like not Oz. Oz is not a good example. Although Oz, yeah, isn't another example. But the show I meant to say was The Wire. The Wire is, to me, is the greatest show I've ever seen, and it's just amazing. Like every time I watch The Wire, I'm like, this show is so wonderful. I mean, like they nail it. They absolutely nail it, and the show is like it's so revealing about American lifestyle and lifestyle in American city, not just about drug dealers and cops and shit like that, but the whole sort of the whole sort of environment comes alive, and you get to know characters on every end of the spectrum, and you get to understand them, and it's through a slow build up. But like I never watched The Wire, for instance. I think there's 5 seasons. I've never seen like an episode or a scene where I'm like, why do they put this in, or why do they? You never have that. You just like everything just fits so well, and even the characters. Some of your favorite characters do get killed off at certain times, and you can be, oh, fuck this, But no, it just feels like it just works so well. Like. That's a cool thing, and that's why we're fortunate right now to have this type of level of entertainment that we are able to enjoy, and the accessibility to be able to go and watch these shows. Like I watched the Battlestar Galactica back when it was airing, and every episode I'd be ready to watch it, sort of thing, when it came on, and it was one of those shows you didn't want to miss. It
was wild.
That show now too. I mean, going back and watching that now would be, with all the knowledge about transhumanism and everything that's going on.
It's thickly layered, man. It's so deep.
It is. It
really is deep.
It's great that we're able to do this. So it's fun doing these podcasts, Rob. I gotta say. I'm looking forward to doing Star Wars. I know we're going to have a shitload to talk about. I think, and it's going to be fun doing Game of Thrones. It's a good way to reach a lot of different people out there. I'm hoping with this particular channel here to try to reach more of a mainstream audience and just bring them in and try to get them to question what's going on, sort of thing, and look at things a little bit more
objectively.
and try to understand that a lot of whatever entertainment is providing is also a good opportunity for us to question what's going on right now in our world. I'm going to be checking out some of the other shows out there. A lot of people are screaming at me, watch this show. So obviously I got to check out The Expanse. I want to check out the new X-Files. I never even watched the original X-Files. I was just from television at that point in time in my life. So I got a lot of catching up to do, but it is a great opportunity for us to discuss all these things and what they potentially could mean for a lot of us. And so anyways, with that being said, Rob, 1:00, so we've been going almost about 3 hours, so I think we're going to say goodnight now. Do you want to let folks know where they can follow you and find you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on YouTube here, all same, Robert J. Morris, Tiberius74 on Twitter. And come check out stuff. I do a lot of different crazy shit, so
doing a lot of work into holistic medicine and all the holistic doctors that have been killed. And I don't know if you got a chance, Rob, but if you do, definitely go to New World Agenda and check out the video that I put up today. Dealing, what was it that I did today? It was just fucking mind-blowing. Dealing with all the chemicals that are going into the fertilizers or the pesticides and herbicides that are going into our system. And they're fucking up with especially the development of children and the development of fetuses, stuff like that. And they are fucking with us in the worst of ways. So any of you that are listening to this, definitely go check out New World Agenda. I think if you go to Supreme Lord Commander and you look on the main channel, you'll see the link for the channel on the side. There's some really important information there dealing with a lot of things that could be affecting you. Are you a a young couple that are trying to get pregnant, or you a young couple that have a baby, you want to know this shit. You definitely will, because these things are really messing, and this ties into the whole LGBT thing, and also with transhumanism and all this. We're going to be getting into that, and we're going to have a lot more discussions. I really enjoy getting into the pop culture and analyzing it and breaking it down.
Yeah, it's like one of the legs of the spider, if you would. It's only part of this part of the beast anyway.
And this is the way we're going to reach a lot more people and reach a different audience is what we want to do. So obviously, and thank you so much, all you guys in the chat. You guys are amazing. Rattlehead, Solidarity,
thanks,
all you guys are amazing. So it's so awesome to do this show. And so we'll be back on Wednesday. May the 4th be with you. May the 4th be with you. It'll be Star Wars, and that will be a deep one, because I think there's a lot of really crazy things going on with Star Wars right now, and it really is probably the biggest cultural or pop culture sort of phenomena that's out there since Disney has taken over. They are going to release Star Wars movies every fucking year for as long as you can imagine. All right, so
they're gonna milk this puppy.
Yeah, they're gonna milk it. But I gotta say, what I see from the Rogue One trailer, wow! I'm like, yeah, that looks like the type of Star Wars movie I would love to watch. I'm sure it's gonna have some heavy themes in it, but it looks like it could be a really great, exciting film.
We might want to take a little look at J.J. Abrams as well.
Yeah, we're gonna take a look at all that. Yeah, Rob. Yeah, if you could dig into that a bit before we get to Wednesday. I would say 8 o'clock, maybe 7, 8 o'clock. I might do like a short gaming session before. I might do a bit of Star Wars Battlefront just to be into it, sort of thing.
Awesome.
But yeah, the big thing will be a Star Wars podcast on Wednesday on this channel. Hopefully we'll have Press Reset. I think he got lucky. I hope he did. Press Reset and possibly others coming on board to discuss all things Star Wars. What is going on with all the Star Wars? What are some of the themes, especially dealing with the Force Awakens, which I think, wow, I found so much shit in this. And I've been wanting to cover this for a long time, so this will be a good opportunity. Hopefully a lot of Star Wars fans will tune in and learn a thing or two. And with that being said, yeah, may the Schwartz be with you.
May the Schwartz be with you.
May the Schwartz be with you. Yes. We will see you again here on Supreme Lord Commander, of course, on Wednesday. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
And good night.